Hello everyone, welcome into our latest live video. Today it is the 28th of August, it is Thursday, and it's 2025. Welcome in, and today we're looking at another laptop from our friends over at Nimo, primarily because we see a lot of great value being offered by Nimo that's almost too good to be true. We're seeing some great warranty, 90-day free returns, assembled here in the USA with a USA depot. So if you did need to send it for repair, you're keeping it in the United States. That means it's going to be a lot faster to get things there and back if any repair is needed. And they have a variety of laptops and mini PCs that we're always happy to look at because there's so many variations for people's different needs, expectations, and budgets. It's nice to have choices. And then for us to compare Nimo to Nimo to Nimo gives you an idea of price differentials for the different benefits. Whether or not that means or holds any value to you is for you to decide, but ultimately just to explain the differences between them, both in hardware, screen size, battery life, processing power, price. So with that, we're going to be unboxing the this Nimo machine right here. Is a 17.3-inch laptop. And if we take a look over at the Amazon page, we can get some idea of our specifications by, I think that button right there will do it. There it is. So in our video notes below today's video, you'll find links to these laptops, and you'll see these various versions, 16 gigs and 1 terabyte of storage, 32 gigs, and 1 tera, double the RAM, same storage, or double the RAM with double the storage, or double the RAM again back to the 1 terabyte, or double the RAM again with the 2 terabyte, and of course pricing accordingly. Now they've got these on sale right now at $749, which they're claiming is more than 50% off, and they make them in a couple colors. This is blue and this one's black, so you got two different colors there. It's a Ryzen 7 8000 series. So if you've been following the Ryzen lineup, if you're familiar with AMD's Ryzen lineup, the 8000 series were primarily directed to gaming. I was not a big fan of those processors myself because I'm not into gaming. But if I was, with the 8000 series, AMD has stripped away a lot of things that other people in business would find valuable that gamers would find in their way. Now, this specific processor I don't know much about, but I do know what the sort of concept is behind the 8000 series of Ryzen chips. They're not going to support Gen 5. There's just a lot about them that's all about increasing that internal graphics performance, which has now been overshadowed by the Halo Strix internal graphics, but again at about twice the price. That being said, the unit we've got here today I believe represents the one that we've clicked on, the 32 gigs DDR5, a terabyte of storage. The processor's 8 cores and 16 threads and will turbo up to 4.9 gigahertz. The internal graphics are the 780M, which I believe all the Ryzen 8000 series have, and it's a 100 watt Type C. I believe that's how it's powered. It's got a backlit keyboard, a fingerprint reader, and USB 4. So really, really well equipped at this price. That's why I said, I don't know how Nimo consistently has such low prices. It seems like everybody else that we're looking at coming from East Asia is charging a lot more money without that kind of return period, a 90-day return period if you buy from Nimo, 30 days from Amazon, and a 2-year warranty, US supported assembly, again 90-day returns, and basically within the first 30 days you'd go back to Amazon. I believe, I'm not quite sure how you would return it if you bought it from Amazon after 30 days. I'm not familiar with that process, but I do know if you buy it directly from Nimo, the 90-day returns are built in, and it doesn't change anything. Just take a quick look here. The 100 watt, oh, that's the power delivery. Okay. And a 6.5 foot USB cable. That's decent. Just 15 minutes of charging delivers 2 hours of use, which is ideal for travel, universally compatible. Okay, yeah, because it's USB. What else? Equipped with 32 gigs DDR5, Gen 4 SSD. We know it's going to be Gen 4 because it's an 8000 series. And I don't know, are the reviews on this yet? But yeah, look at here. Reviews, there's over 30 ratings, which are overwhelmingly positive, a 4.8 out of 5 stars. Yeah, well, I could see why. Generous return period, generous warranty, extraordinarily low price, and the fact that they're assembled here in the US with a US depot, that's going to be a benefit for those of us in the US that very difficult to find outside of, you know, the big system integrators like Lenovo, HP, Dell, etc. Now, if we go back over to camera 1, that's what we're going to be looking at today. Just a quick overview, and we'll say hello to everybody joining us in the chat room. Hold on a second. Once I get this all organized. We have a new supporter, Alejandro Ms. Belial. Welcome in. Thank you for becoming a supporter here. We appreciate you very much, and definitely hope that you'll be checking out the benefits of membership, which includes our members-only videos every Monday, along with our complete video archive without ads. There's Mortant saying hello, along with Eddie Casanova, John Lewis, and John Paul Bacon. Jose Lopez and 3D Everything, Jonathan Fells and Mark Baggett, Luke Greenia, David Graham and Ben Laird all joining and saying hello. Of course, Mara's hanging out there in the chat, our channel administrator, saying hello to everybody, including Andy W6AD and Anthony joins us, says hello. Eugene Hildago. Our friend Buster saying hello from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh right now, 58 degrees Fahrenheit or 14.4 degrees Celsius. Scott says hello. Welcome in. There's, let's see, some of these names I might have already said now. Luke Greenia joining us. And Lar the Bear says hello. Michael Lavelle, Dazzle555, and Rick Lakes all joining us saying hello. Right on. And there's also Calazo. And I hope I got everybody. I'm sorry if I skipped anyone. Just trying to get through that quickly. I anxiously want to dig into this box. Special tool for this. Okay, the model on this is called, that's what I was going to look for. I knew I was forgetting something. An N177B, that's the model. And I want to highlight that because they do make a lot of different models, and it can be very confusing when you're offered so many choices to which one was he looking at, because they might look similarly on the outside but be completely equipped differently on the inside. So just one look at that real quick, and I've highlighted it here. The Nimo N177B is what we're looking at today. This is a brand new release. As far as I know, this was not available last week. We're one of the first, I believe, if not the first, to get our hands on it. I think. Regardless, it's certainly the first time for us, and it's a very modern architecture. We're not talking about a budget machine here. We're talking about a very aggressively priced upper end machine. It's right up towards the top. You'd have to go to Ryzen 9 really to get to the pinnacle, but you're really, for the most part, looking at gaming machines, and you're going to very easily double your price minimally for something that if you were looking for really high-end gaming. These can do gaming, don't get me wrong. They do a very good job at 1080p gaming, even AAA titles. But when that's not good enough for you, and the frames per second aren't good enough for you, and the resolution's not good enough for you, another $1,500 will get you there. with other laptops equipped for that sort of use case scenario. And I want to set your expectations properly. For everything else, video editing, photo editing, content creation, everyday use, it's going to fly through that. It's super easy. So, all right. Here's our unboxing. Nimo, in the past, they've been known for pretty much including everything you need and nothing you don't. And I very much appreciate that. So let's see what we have in the box. Here's the way it's packed. It looks like the styrofoam that's here is just there to protect the case and the screen from any sort of weight or boxes being set on top of the box during shipping. A lot of manufacturers don't do this. A lot of manufacturers simply leave that space empty, giving the box room to flex in. And if it flexes in too much, you might open up your brand new computer, find it's got a cracked screen, and you'll be sending it back. It's not necessarily costing you anything, but I'm sure you were looking forward to receiving it. Then it finally shows up with damage, and you got to send it back and wait again. So I appreciate the extra packing materials that reduce the odds of that occurrence happening. I'm sure the manufacturers aren't too happy when they got to take something back like that either. So it's good for them, it's good for you. All right, let's see, let's get the laptop out. So that is the laptop, and then we've got some documentation. And then we have this box right here. I'm going to just set all this down so we can have some room on the counter. Likely, this box is just a power brick. I'd be surprised if there's anything more than that in here. Like I said, with the folks at Nimo, they're really keeping the cost down. So the packing material isn't like this whole big experience of unboxing. Who cares about the unboxing? You're just throwing the box out anyway. Look at my Apple iPhone box open. Isn't it elegant? Okay, how much price did that add? So as a practical guy, I love the way Nimo's packing these things. I also appreciate that they're not giving us a whole bunch of things that mostly people aren't going to use. So just keep it out of the box. So let's see what's in here. I don't expect there to be a network cable. I don't expect there to be an HDMI cable. I don't expect anything but what I need to run this laptop. So that's our power brick. That's our USB power that runs from the power brick to the laptop. That's all you need. That's all you get. And that also helps keep the price down, keeps life simple. I've certainly sent computers to people and they'll have like accessories that they don't know what the accessories. What's the cable for? Well, that's for an internal SATA drive. What's that? Okay, never mind. You know, they're paying for things they don't know what they are. What's this? That's an Oculink port. Well, what do I do with it? Well, you would open it up and you could replace one of your M.2 drives with that. Why would I do that? For putting an external graphics card on. Why would I put an external graphics card on? Well, if you wanted to play games or you needed an external graphics card, the mini PCs oftentimes have a port called an Oculink port. Then you could buy and this whole thing gets into this long discussion over something they have no interest in. It was just included in the box, and it was part of the price that they paid. So what I'm saying is Nimo doesn't do that. All right. So you have a pretty nice power brick here. And with my glasses, let me see what the wattage is. Trying to figure out if the 100 watts was input or output. Output is power delivery 5 volts at 3 amps, or 12 volts at 3 amps, or 15 volts at 3 amps. PPS, I don't know what that stands for. 100 watt maximum. So it's a 100 watt maximum power brick. And it has their logo on it. You know, one of my other complaints with these manufacturers of laptops and mini PCs, especially the lesser known brand names, like Nimo is a lesser known brand name. They're sort of breaking the stereotype with regards to putting a logo on their power brick so we know where this goes. The ironic thing is it's USB-C and pretty universal. It doesn't really matter, other than you make sure you have at least enough power to power the laptop. Too much power is no such thing, and too little power, the laptop's not going to charge up. So it's nice that they did that, but they did it on a power brick that's universal for anything USB-C. Be careful what you ask for. I appreciate it nonetheless. At least if you have several power bricks that are USB-C and you're wondering which one's for my phone, in theory, you want to just take the biggest, most powerful one and use it for everything. Like if you're traveling, for example, you wouldn't need to bring the smaller one for the phone. But if you bring the smaller one for the phone, you likely can't charge the laptop with it. So as long as it's bigger, it can work universally to power things that are not as power hungry. Anything that's more power hungry, if the power brick you supplied isn't providing enough power, it's likely not going to turn on and function. Yeah, it's definitely a shade of blue here. And here's what this looks like. They say the keyboard is backlit. So if we open this up, there's probably some protection in here for the screen. Yeah, and that's just there for shipping. I've seen people keep this. I guess if you move this around a lot, the idea is you're trying to prevent a collision between the screen and the keyboard. If you're holding it incorrectly and you're pushing it down. If you've ever had a laptop and you started noticing indentations of the keys, certain keys across your screen, a piece like this will keep that from happening, but it's not really intended for everyday use. It's really just there for shipping. You don't want to open up a brand new laptop and have the key impressions on the screen, do you? But once it's yours and you handle it that way, that's on you. You caused it. So some people may choose to keep that if they don't trust themselves or it bothers them. Most people don't. We've got our AMD Go Faster stickers right down here. And pretty standard keyboard layout, a fingerprint sensor I can see right here. So once you set up a password, you can then start using your fingerprint as a passkey and use your password as, for some reason, let's say your passkey doesn't work, then that long, complicated password, so long as you make a note of it somewhere, you don't have to ever enter it again unless your fingerprint sensor isn't working. And this is a far more secure way to log in. It's the same way you're going to use on a phone, basically. And it's all starting to move to the PC now. That's called a passkey. And you can also do like face recognition. Anything like that would be a passkey, some biological marker, whether it's a fingerprint or a face scan, maybe even an iris scan, I don't know. A YubiKey, anything that identifies it uniquely as yours without typing in a password that can be guessed. But the password's still got to be there when you set it up, just as a backup, is another way to get in, especially if you're trying to get on a different machine that doesn't have the fingerprint sensor or a camera, or you haven't enabled any of that, then you'd still default back to the old-fashioned password. Same with your phone, by the way. Anything that requires a fingerprint for you to log in with your phone also has a PIN code or another way you can get in. So we're seeing that more and more with on the Windows side of things, and long overdue. People hate passwords and they don't take them seriously when their most popular password in the world is 123456. It's a problem. And then people cry that they're a victim when they get their identity stolen, when they're the ones who left their doors open and unlocked. What did you think was going to happen? Give it enough time, someone's going to notice and they're going to take everything. And all you had to do was close and lock the door. But people are going to be people. What are you going to do? So we try and simplify it for them. And that's where we're at today, and that's what that's for. I'm going to go ahead and plug the USB cable into our brick, and then, yeah, we do have a nice long USB cable here. I appreciate that, because that means I can easily reach from my outlet down here on the floor to, let's see, which side takes the power. This is a Kensington lock. This is not a USB on this side of the laptop. If we bring it around this way, again, take a closer look at it, that may look like a USB-C to you, but it's not going to go in there. That's a Kensington lock, which is a steel cable that you can buy as an accessory. literally anywhere that sells computer equipment like Amazon, etc. And it's like a bike lock, like a bike cable, and it goes in the hole and it opens up, and that prevents the laptop from being stolen. You secure the other end of the cable to something immovable, preferably. And then there's the rest of our ports on this side. Nothing on the back. It's completely blank there. And then on the sides, you know, we're not going to have a traditional Ethernet port on here because it's just not as wide as an Ethernet port. So because of that, you're going to be on Wi-Fi only, or in my case, I will use a USB to Ethernet adapter. We do have HDMI out. Usually the USB-C closest to the edge, closest to the rear of the laptop, that's usually your charging port. And if I plug that in, there will typically be some kind of a light indicating charging status. Now, when the studio light's on, it's probably hard to see that light, but it's glowing red or orange right now. And that tells us that the laptop has power, the battery is charging. We can already right now turn the laptop on, and it will both charge and give us power to the laptop. And when the battery is fully charged, that light, like anything else that takes a battery, will likely be blue, green, or turn off. All right, let me get back over to camera 1. And let's go through our first boot. I believe this is the power button here. And I don't see any power lights to indicate if, oh yeah, it's over here. So now I have a blue light and I have an orange light next to it. So that blue light means it's turned on. That's your power light. The orange light is your charging status. So that first boot does take a second. I was a little confused because I wasn't seeing immediately, you know, something happen on the screen. And that's why I typically see those lights right up here on the top. But on this unit, they're located on the side, which isn't uncommon. It's less common. But there you go. That's how you can tell if it's turned on and you're waiting for your first boot, as I just was. And then we should get to our out-of-box experience here in just a moment. So I got to get ready with my glasses on. And hopefully that'll come up here in just a second. This thing is absolutely whisper quiet. I don't hear a thing. I just heard the Windows sound. Now, this is going to be a little difficult for me to show you because our HDMI port likely is not enabled yet. But let me try it. Let's just see. Down here, probably underneath all the boxes I threw down here, I have an HDMI cord.
Set up your device using a screen reader. Turn on narrator by pressing Windows plus Control plus Enter. For more accessibility features, press Windows plus U, or select the accessibility icon in the bottom corner.
Okay. Plug that in here. And let's just see if we get any output out of that right now. Oh, we are. Very good. That'll make this easier for you guys to see as I go through the standard process that I do with any other computer. Now remember, they do send these computers all over the world, so there is an international install of Windows on here. It's a little different from what I install. I install just a US English version of Windows. They're not really that different, other than some things like our setup screen may look a little bit different. Region settings and things like that may also slightly vary, simply because there's so many more options here. This is sort of the one Windows to rule them all kind of deal, whereas I typically install a version of Windows specifically meant for the United States. So you may notice little differences in that, and it's pretty common for manufacturers that sell all over the world to use an international install. I think it makes sense. We'll go ahead and click yes on our keyboard, and no secondary keyboard. We'll skip that. I'm going to say I don't have internet, and I would recommend you do the same until we get to the desktop. I'll click accept on the license agreement, and we'll give it a username of user, enter, enter. And I leave that password blank, so when the computer comes on, it goes straight to the desktop. I see a lot of people put passwords on there, and I hear from those same people, how do I figure out what my password is, because I don't remember what it is. So if you don't put it on there to begin with, it's really not a problem. People have their reasons, but I hope that you plan for a contingency when you forget it. As long as you have some sort of way of recovering your password, or that you've written it down somewhere, that you have a system in place, that day will come. And if you don't have that system in place, you'll be another support call from a self-inflicted voluntary choice that you made to lock yourself out in the future. But when you made that choice, you weren't thinking of that. It happens to all of us. Give it enough time. So it's better to have a backup of your password that you set with your account name, or even if you write it down on a piece of paper and know where that paper is, and hopefully you never need it. That's the best case. Worst case is not that. Okay. I hope you never need it. But what are your plans when you do need it? If you need it, what are you going to do? I'm going to call you and ask you for help. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and let this set up now that we've answered a few setup questions. Like I said, with an international install of Windows, it's going to accommodate what region you're in during the setup process. So if we had selected a different language or a different region, that's all the inner workings of Windows would then be changed over to that particular language or that particular region, including how the date and time are displayed. We display the date and time differently here in the United States with month, day, year, and everybody else pretty much likes to do day, month, year, stuff like that, all these regional changes. And so that's what Windows is doing when it's getting that out-of-box experience, is it's getting your personal preferences as well as your regional preferences. Now, with that being said, we have our regular desktop up, and we can just verify at this point the version of Windows that we have installed, being Home or Pro. And if I click on System here, we can see it is running version 11 Home, and it is 24H2. So it is the latest version. There will be some Windows updates. Down here, there's the information for tech support. There's a phone number, the name of the company. I've seen some East Asian computers where none of this information is filled in. The manufacturer may have a name, but they're otherwise a mystery and they don't seem to exist. That other brand we were looking at, Gatorly, I don't seem to have a website. They don't seem to have any. They talk about support in their instructions, but they don't mention the name of the company, website, email, or phone number. And whether that's done on purpose or somebody just didn't think about it, I can't tell you. But what I can tell you is Nimo did think about it. And if you bought a Dell, an HP, Lenovo, etc., that would always be filled out. And it's what we expect from a reputable system manufacturer. Now, taking a look in the device manager, let me close this. And we're going to right click on the start menu again, only this time device manager. We can see our network adapter is going to be Wi-Fi only, and of course Bluetooth. Now this has Wi-Fi 6E. Now most people don't even use Wi-Fi 6E, so you're well equipped. I know Wi-Fi 7 is out. There's not a huge difference between Wi-Fi 6E and Wi-Fi 7, unless you have that 6 gigahertz band, which is actually between Wi-Fi 6 and 6E is the 6 gigahertz band, which may not be allowed in some countries. That level of bandwidth is not allowed for consumer use, which is another regional setting within Windows that is determined during that setup, and will work in the United States, for example, but may not work in other European countries. So with that, these are just more and more of those little idiosyncrasies of countries around the world. And if you're selling a worldwide product, you have to accommodate to their laws. Now, if I want to plug this into the network, I don't want to hook it up to Wi-Fi when I'm live on camera. It seems like just a lot of work and no reason to expose that information when I can just plug a cable into it. But what do you do when you don't have an RJ45 jack is you can simply buy one of these network adapter cables. This one's a 2.5 gig and type C. This is a 1 gig type A. They all have built-in drivers to Windows. So all you do is plug it in and it automatically detects it. So I'm choosing the type A adapter simply because it's facing me right here. It's the easiest within my reach. It's all 6 of one, half dozen to the other with regards to if it's a 1 gig or 2.5 gig. For what I'm demonstrating today, it won't make any difference. And then once that's plugged in, I can plug my Ethernet cable into that. So I'm going to grab my Ethernet cable. And as soon as I plug this in, you should see the start menu start to propagate. So let's see how quickly I can do this. We'll plug this in here, and then we're going to go over to this input here, and we'll click on the start button. See, I'm probably already too late. And this will propagate. Once again, all of these icons that have propagated that were shadows before are based on your region settings. One of the reasons I can set up Windows the way I do is I don't ship computers outside of the United States, so I don't have to worry about this kind of stuff. If I were an international company, this would be something I would have to do too. All right, let's go back full screen over here. I'm not a fan of this Word in Excel. I think we've been through all this before. When we look at the control panel, or the settings rather, and we go to apps, and then we'll go to installed apps, you'll see that we have multiple instances of Microsoft Office 365. And I think there's like 8 of them in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this is the default one that comes with Microsoft Windows. Now, in theory, and it's my understanding that all of this is from yesteryear, and that they're following an old process, and the folks that are responsible for setting up their images are following a method that, in my opinion, in my understanding, is no longer applicable. It's still possible, and this is the way we used to have to do things. But today, this simple Microsoft 365 official should accommodate whatever regional settings you have and install the appropriate version at that time. But back before this existed, this was the way you had to do it if you were shipping internationally. So what you need to know if you buy one of these machines from Nimo is Nimo seems to be under the impression they have to do this, and we've told them they don't, and I don't believe that they're interested in changing it. And that's okay, they don't have to do that. If they want to continue what I think is an old school, old-fashioned method that's consuming your hard drive space and resources on your brand new computer, I personally find it a little disrespectful to the customer. Even though it's the best of intentions, they're trying to be all-inclusive for everybody, but you're only going to need one of these. All the others are just taking up space. This would be considered, in my opinion, bloatware. Then on top of that, that insult to injury, you're going to do that all over again with Microsoft OneNote, once again with 8 different installs. And you may not even use one of them. So you may be uninstalling 16 things here on a fresh, brand new computer. That is not a default to Windows. This is something Nimo is voluntarily choosing to do because they believe it adds value. I disagree. I believe it adds discouragement because no matter where you live in the world, sure, your version of Office is in there, but you also have 7 other versions you don't want, and those do take up quite a bit of space. Other than that, there really isn't any other, unwanted software. Some kind of on-screen display here, like this Outlook is included in Windows, and Microsoft includes all this with a single version. Microsoft doesn't put that stuff on Windows for a reason, and I don't know why the folks, the people who are making this decision at Nimo seem to be basing it on old information, and they're not, in my opinion, they're not keeping up. In my opinion, if I'm selling a laptop, and this is a very minor nitpick, I really do like the laptops, I like this company, but if there was one thing I would change from this company, is I would say, give me a pure, unadulterated, unmolested version of Windows. Do not modify it, do not change it, do not add anything to it. Let me, the customer, do that. Microsoft has already included every link for their customers to get Office, to get OneNote, and to get it in whatever language they want. So when you wonder how much difference does this make in file size, Why don't we take a look at that today? Because I don't think we've done that before. Is this really taking up a lot of space, or am I making a big deal out of nothing? So if we come over here to, let's get back over to the screen here. If we look at how much, I'm going to show you a couple things. They're pretty nitpicky, right? Overall, this laptop would score somewhere in the 85% range for me for value, performance, warranty, customer service. But there's still 15% gap in what they can do better. In my opinion, this is strictly my opinion. First of all, if we go to disk cleanup, I'll bet you there is a ton, not only of leftover Windows files, but also leftover Microsoft Office files times 8. I'll bet you there is a ton of trash that was never emptied before they sent this computer out. And it's pretty rare to ever find a manufacturer that does that. So I don't know, let's just see if we check every box, how much trash was left on here from the factory. I'm going to go through each box. So nearly 3.53 gigs of just junk. You don't need any of this. It's all leftover temp files from the installation of all those versions of Office and Windows updates and any driver modifications that they made. This is the leftover. Like when I took this laptop out of the box, I don't need the box anymore. I don't need the styrofoam anymore. That's trash. Think of that 3.53 gigs as all the packaging. All that packaging just sitting there taking up space. Then on top of that, everything they unpackaged is also taking up space. So if we look at the C drive and take a look at, first of all, what size drive do we have and how much of it are they using right out of the factory have they taken from us? Regardless of their justification, it shouldn't be their decision how to use my space I just paid for outside of just a basic Windows install. First of all, they're working a lot harder than they have to, and they're giving their clients less. So if I right click on this C drive and go to properties, we have a total of 57.3 gigs. Now the question is, if this was just a clean Windows 11 home installation with just drivers, and that's it, what would the size of our install be? I'm going to guess about 20% less, 20 to 30%. So 10% of 57 would be 5.7. So 20% would be double that. I'm going to say somewhere between 20 and 30% of our hard drive consumed space is stuff we don't want on there. But at the same time, unless we as the customer take it off, we don't get access to that space anymore. So that's my debate on that. That's my push to Nimo. But again, it's a pretty minor thing. Some people will reinstall their operating system, you know, just for the heck of it anyway. So I thought, well, let's do that today. Let me grab my, where's my flash drive? Here it is. Now my flash drive is USB type A. And one of the problems you're going to find with a modern day laptop is you may only get one USB type A. So while we swing the other way to the positives of the Nimo laptop, you can see I filled up a lot of USB ports right down the side, power, HDMI, and our adapter for wired Ethernet. But now I need another one, so we come around the side and lo and behold, we have a USB 2 and a USB 3 here, along with a micro SD card reader, a headphone jack, and our Kensington lock. So, you know, a lot of laptops these days, even the real expensive Dell XPS, they don't even give you a type A anymore, USB. You get like 3 USB type Cs and a dongle to plug into it to adapt it. That's one more thing to lose, one more thing to break, one more thing to forget. I'd much prefer having HDMI built into the laptop. A lot of laptops, especially on the higher end, they're pulling those HDMI ports and including a USB-C dongle. It's too many dongles, it's too many cables, and on top of that, it's way too much money. Those are very expensive laptops to be that inconvenienced. These are things I'm watching for when I'm buying a laptop. As a creator, I need that HDMI port. Otherwise, how would I be sharing the screen with you right now? On top of that, I need both USB Type-C and Type-A, and preferably have an equal amount of both. But as long as I have one of each, I can make do. But I would really prefer to have more than I need. And Nimo has solved that for me. They've given me more than I need. I still have another USB Type-A that I'm not using. and I have a USB Type-C over here I'm not using. So with all that plugged in, I still have 2 more things I can plug in. I really appreciate that. So I don't want to hammer on the negatives. I also want to emphasize all the positives, which include value for money, the warranty, the fact that it's assembled in USA, but it's not perfect, not in my opinion. But it could very easily be perfect with a simple configuration change of the operating system. Even if it is shipped worldwide, I'm telling you, my solution works worldwide. I just don't think they either believe me or they've tested it. Regardless, it's their company. They can run it however they want to. But you as an owner, you might want to just wipe and reinstall Windows. And we're going to do that now and show you how. The first thing I want to do is back up the drivers from the factory so I don't have to go and download them. Now, Nimo does have a website, and they do have downloads, and you can do it that way. But since we have a working system, it'd be a lot faster and easier to just grab the drivers we've got now. So if I come back over here to camera, well, the desktop camera, let's go over to the yellow folder. Let's go over to my flash drive, and I keep a little file here called driver backup. This is native to Windows. It's simply a command line structure, and I have a video covering this, and I've demonstrated it numerous times, and this is a full explanation. I don't need the full explanation. I just want the command. So the command I'm looking for is right here, step number 1. This is going to make a directory for us called drivers on the C drive, and then it's going to export our drivers into that drivers folder. So I'm going to hit Control-C to copy that. I'm going to come down to the search bar, type in CMD for command prompt, right-click, and then, whoops, that did not open the way I wanted it to. I'm going to do that one more time. CMD, and I'll click over here, Run as Administrator. We've got to have that administrator privilege turned on. And then I will press Control-V as in Victor, and that pastes that command in, and it's now extracting all of the installed drivers. So we don't have to guess, we don't have to download. It removed or exported, it didn't remove anything, it exported 28 drivers. So the drivers are still on the system and made a copy of them into the drivers folder. So if I type exit, and then of course we can close this, we now have a folder on the C drive that wasn't there before called drivers. Over here to drivers, those are all of our drivers. Right click and let's get them off of here. I'll put them on my flash drive for now. And it's a good idea to make a permanent backup of this anytime you need to replace your drive or you suffer a failure or you want to wipe everything and reinstall it for some reason. This is one of those things that you're going to be glad you have, just like a backup of a note of what your password is. I hope you never need it. But should you need it, it's not a big deal because you'll already have it. It doesn't work that way the other way around. And it doesn't cost much in time or money to do this. No third-party software is necessary, nor should be trusted. You do this yourself, you know it's done right, and you use the tools built into Windows, which is how Microsoft recommends you do it if you don't want to have unforeseeable problems in the future. Now, of course, you could still have unforeseeable problems in the future, but it's less likely if you do everything by the book. All these little shortcuts people give you, online especially, all have consequences. Nearly all of them will have eventual consequences. Usually a Windows update will cause them, and then people point the blame at Microsoft when they created the problem earlier by using some registry tweak or modification to the system that may have benefited them at that time, but now there's a consequence later. So I just recommend stay outside of third-party software as much as possible other than what's actually needed, and stay away from third-party utilities 100%. And again, with some exceptions, the general rule is any sort of system utility is already built into Windows. So just keep that in mind. It's your choice. Choose wisely. Now with our drivers backed up, and once again, just as a reminder, obviously we will have a little bit more space used on the C drive now that we created that drivers folder, but probably not by much. What were we at? 57 gigs, I think is what it was. So we're running at 63.4. Okay, so just doing that driver change alone has added a bit of space to this. I'm trying to remember what it was prior to me doing that. I suppose now that I've got a backup of the drivers, I can just delete that and empty the recycle bin. And let's see what our space is now. can see we've got a 1 terabyte drive in here. Properties. It says we're at 61.5. I don't know why that's grown a little bit. However, it could be because we're downloading updates in the background. Just so you know, there's other data coming in. Let's just say this is 60, just to round it. Okay, and then let's come back over here to camera 1. And what I want to do at this point is I want to take my utilities flash drive out and put my Windows 11 installation media in there. Drive is sticking. That'll fix it. All right, so Windows 11, we're going to pop that bad boy in here. And likely I'm not going to be able to have the HDMI port output until we get Windows back up onto the desktop. So what I'm going to do at this point is simply reboot the computer to start from this flash drive. And if you've seen my videos before, you know exactly what I'm about to do. And that is we're going to go over to the Start menu. We're going to go to Settings. And this is just one way of several different ways you can override the boot options. We're going to go to Windows Update. And then, you know, it is downloading updates right now, but we're going to wipe this out anyway, so it doesn't matter. We're going to go to Advanced Options. We're going to go to Recovery. And we're going to go to Advanced Startup, Restart Now, and restart it. Now, of course, it doesn't know that we are going to wipe Windows, so it may start installing some of the updates that it was in the process of that we interrupted. It's trying to finish. And the best thing I can recommend for you is just be patient. Well, yes, you could force it off. It's not going to take that long to just be patient, let it finish, and you'll be less likely to have any sort of issues with drive corruption or, and I'm talking physical corruption that could interfere with recognizing the drive properly. It's unlikely, but just what's the point of taking the risk is all I'm saying. I don't think it's worth it. Now, what I'm going to do is put camera 1 up in a corner here, and we'll wait for that to reboot, and it'll give us a boot menu option to restart from USB drive instead of restarting from the internal hard drive. Then we go ahead and set up Windows 11 just like we always do, only we delete the existing Windows 11 that's there, which includes all partitions on disk 0. Probably 4 or 5 partitions on disk 0. We wipe those all out, and then from that point forward, it's the same installation process. I don't think it's going to ask us what version of Windows. I think it's embedded into the BIOS, a Windows 11 home product key. So if you pay attention, you might notice that it's quite possible, we're going to find out, that it never asks us what version of Windows 11 we want for that reason. All right, let me go back full screen now on camera 1. And then what I have to do is more or less turn this around so you can see. Maybe we can even go to camera 2. That might help. And what I want to choose here is to use a device. This is not a touch screen, by the way. And I hate touch screens, so I'm very happy that it's not a touch screen. Use a device and removable device right here. And in theory, it should boot over here. Now, I'll tell you, there's times when I put the wrong drive in. When I put my utility drive in, when I thought I put my Windows drive in, and it keeps defaulting back to the C drive, and I'm pulling out my hair figuring, why is this not booting? Well, because my utilities flash drive is not bootable, dummy. That's what I did. So hopefully what we're looking at here is the installations, the setup rather screen. It's hard to tell, honestly, which drive we're booting from. But this will obviously take a little bit longer, and when it's done, we're going to get a setup screen instead of a desktop. So I don't know until I get that far. But yeah, we did boot from this flash drive. So English, and again, this is an English version of Windows, not an international version of Windows, so it may look a little bit different with a US keyboard layout. I want to install Windows, and I agree to the terms and conditions and hit next. And it says, enter the product key. See, this is what I was surprised about. I don't see a product key apparently is not embedded in the BIOS. And that's how it knows whether to install Windows 11 Pro or Windows 11 Home. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say down here that I don't have a product key. When I do that, then, and by the way, this is another improvement Nimo can make. It's a minor issue, but still one I think that's worthy of keeping them on par with bigger manufacturers. So because it doesn't have a product key now, it doesn't know what versions of Windows we want. Because we checked it and we know we have Windows 11 Home, that is the default here. So we're going to go ahead and just leave it at that. And hopefully when we get it connected back to the network, it will automatically reassign the product key and activate for us. Now, I also want to make sure I'm not connected to the network while I'm doing this because I don't want the slowdown of updates coming in. So I'm going to disconnect that for now. Then I'm going to hit next. Agree to the license agreement. And in a moment, we're going to see the potential destinations we can install to, which is going to be either the flash drive or the internal drive. The internal drive is disk 0, represented with these 5 disk zeros here. We just want to have one. So we're going to go through each one of them and delete them one by one until only one is left. So delete partition on disk 0. Disk 1, that's our flash drive. We don't want to touch that one. It takes a minute from when you tell it to delete to when it happens. Did I miss something? There we go. So it shades out while it's working, and then it takes it out. We're going to go up one. We're going to delete that one next. Right here. We're going to go to the next one. So is it? There it is. Delete the partition there. And then there's one more right there. When we delete that one, what we're going to have is a wiped out drive that is just disk 0 unallocated space for a total of 1 terabyte, just as though it were brand new out of the box. The drive, not the laptop. I hit next, because that's our destination right there now. Now it's going to recreate what partitions my version of Windows requires, which could be the same, they could be different. It gives us a summary of what we're about to do, and I hit install and just stay out of its way and let it work. And Mara says we have email. Perfect timing, because now while this is installing, we can check our email. And I'm going to go back over here to camera 1, a little wider screen. But yeah, it's the same install as we always do. I'm a little disappointed that the key is not established in the BIOS. These are very minor complaints. Like I said, regardless of how a third party or a manufacturer will install Windows, many of you I know would reinstall it regardless, just because you wouldn't trust it. I get it. But for me, it's just an easier way than clearing out the bloatware. And I'm not a big fan of the international version of Windows. Personally, I have to get the support calls, not you. So if I sold this to a customer, or I sold any computer to a customer with an international version of Windows that I am not familiar with, I may not be able to answer their question with ease. It may require some research. If I keep everything the same for all my customers, then my support becomes a lot easier, and the likelihood for a support call in that regard is less likely. All right, emails. What do we have? Oh, our friend Buster. A very generous super chat from our friend Buster. Not a super chat, rather a PayPal contribution. Well, thank you so much, Buster. That is incredibly generous. Wow. David Graham sends an Amazon gift card. And David said, Amazon had a data breach last month. This is for your finger balm. All these companies are having data breaches constantly. You know, the city of Nevada, or the city, not the city, the state of Nevada in the city of Las Vegas, I believe, their whole municipality was just shut down. So that's just bad IT. There's only so much you can do to protect yourself. And when companies lose your data like that, things like passkeys, such as what we talk about using your finger, they're not really affected by that. But if they have your backup password that you would use, then you're in trouble. Unless you turn on two-factor authentication, where you get some like email or text message on your phone that says someone's trying to log in as you. Is this you? And obviously, if it's you, you would know it was you. If you're confused, then the answer is no. So you absolutely want to make sure you have two-factor or multi-factor authentication turned on. One of those would be using passkeys. And then with passkeys or passwords, you have two different ways to get in the system. And then when you're logging in, it'll ask you, hey, do you want to save your login on this device so we don't have to ask you every time? If you say no, or you're logging in for the first time, it says, well, we need to make sure this is you by sending a message to your phone, sometimes by calling your phone, or by sending you an email if you don't have a phone. And then you got to go look for the email and respond to the email that it is you, and then you can authorize yourself in. That way they can have all the data breaches they want to have, and you can rest assured that even if they have your password, they're still not going to get in without you clicking yes. So you just let them in if you did that. But at the same time, anytime you hear about these data breaches, it's good practice to go ahead and change the password anyway, and never use the same password in more than one place, because once one password is out, they're going to try and use it everywhere. Because they know most people that use computers are pretty simple-minded and don't really understand just how dangerous it is. They just dismiss it and oversimplify it, and they become data theft victims voluntarily because they think, what does it matter? And then it happens, and they go, oh no, I'm a victim. I'm going to go to the news, and I'm going to go. It's all completely avoidable, including the entire municipality of Las Vegas or Henderson or whatever it was, where their entire network is down. You can't go to the DMV for days. It's been down. Nothing you can do. People cannot be helped.
To set up your device using a screen reader, turn on narrator by pressing Windows plus Control plus Enter. For more accessibility features, press Windows plus U, or select the accessibility icon in the bottom corner.
Thank you to our friend Buster and David Graham. Also a shout out to our friends, who did this come from? Oh, from Charlie Purdy. And also Buster sent a super chat as well through an Amazon gift card. So again, we really appreciate that support. You guys are our sponsors. And without you guys, well, this channel would look very different if exist at all. So super shout out and thanks to all of our members and the generosity of both members and viewers that help keep us afloat here. Now, we're going to go through the same thing here. I don't know if this HDMI port is working yet, but let me just take a quick look. No, it's not on yet. That's because this requires a driver. So without plugging it into the internet, we're done with this Windows 11 installer. So I'm going to throw that back in the drawer. I have it for next time. And we're going to answer these questions the same way, but you might notice it looks a little bit different than the prior version. The differences are subtle, but sometimes enough to cause a support call, and I'm going, what? So yeah, US keyboard, no secondary keyboard layout. And then of course, I don't have internet. And username here. So username of USER, enter, enter. And I like to leave the location settings on. So again, I'm just going through all of this exactly the same way. It probably looks identical. Like I said, the differences in the international versus US only are subtle. But sometimes it's those subtle differences that make customers think something's wrong because it's different. And I want everything to always be the same. So I accept those choices. And now it's going to start changing, like I said, with the region format is US, right? So I'm going to have month, day, year versus day, month, year. Time format will typically default into a regular 12-hour clock instead of a 24-hour clock. All the typical US standards, which are commonplace, we don't think about it. It's only when the US travels somewhere, then they go, well, they're all different. No, they're all the same. The US is the one that's different. They're using kilometers. Yeah, most of the world's using kilometers. Well, what the hell's a kilometer? You must be American. So anyway, that doesn't mean anything's wrong with the international version. That's all I'm trying to say. Now, once this brings us up to the next screen here, I think at that point we'll be at the desktop. We can plug our internet back in. And we also have our USB flash drive, which is really bugging me why that's not sliding smooth. By the way, do you have any idea how old this USB? The fact that this is the first time I've had a problem with it in what, 6 or 8 years? I abused the heck out of this thing. And this is a SanDisk Extreme. These were expensive compared to other flash drives at the time, but it's sure worth every penny. No regrets. All right, so we did come up to the desktop. That likely means that our HDMI cable is working, unless it still needs a driver. Let me just quickly check. Okay, so the driver's still missing. So what I'm going to do at this point, before I plug the network in, because that'll start downloading drivers, we might already have the drivers. So let's put our drivers in first. To do that, we'll plug the flash drive in here. This is the faster one. Right here. See if we can get a little closer. And what I'm going to do is right-click on the device manager. And we'll see how many items. We have a lot of items here. It may be difficult for you guys to see that, but all these items are all missing device drivers. And if we scroll down, let me scroll down. So we're looking at about 8 drivers here. Also, if you look at how much drive space, does anybody want to guess how much drive space we're using on this clean install without updates and without all the necessary drivers? Just if we're curious, what does Windows 11 Home actually need by default before you modify it? And right-click on the drive and go to Properties, and that number reads 33.3. May be very difficult for you to see that. I'd have to put it on an angle. 33.3, so nearly half. It's almost like installing Windows 11 twice when you get it from the factory versus installing it once if you do it yourself. There's no reason the factory can't do it that way, so that's why it's a nitpick. It's not a big deal, but I want my extra 30 gigs, okay? Now, after we load drivers and updates, it's going to grow a little bit, but I can't imagine it'll grow by more than 10. That's still significantly less than over 60. So anyway, once we're in the device manager, and I do have better videos with screen capture, but we can't get the screen capture until some of the drivers are in that activate this. So I'm just going to have to show you on this less appealing way, which is to simply click on any item in the device manager, pick an item, and then the options up here, we want to go to the second one from the right. It says Add Drivers, and it says from where. Now I can copy that drivers folder over to the C drive, which I'll probably do anyway, or I can load right off the C drive and still copy them over later. So I'm going to go to this drive over here, our utilities drive. I'm going to locate that right here. And then within that, there's a drivers folder that we copied. We created it and copied it. And that's it. I click OK. I don't have to be specific. It'll search through every subfolder automatically, loading whatever drivers it deems are eligible. You don't have to do any of the thinking. It does it all for you. And then when it's done, we'll need to reboot the computer, and likely this HDMI port will work again, and the number of devices in the device manager should be 0 having issues. This should resolve everything, and it's so easy if you're prepared. Recovering a lost password, recovering a failed hard drive, or recovering from a virus, they're all super easy if you're prepared for it. It's the lack of preparation that is basically planning for failure that end users think they don't have to worry about until it's too late. So I'm strongly advising you not to be that thoughtless end user that wants to live a life of reactiveness, and to instead put a little bit of time in today being proactive. And of course, if things don't happen and you can say, well, I guess I didn't need it, that's the best you can hope for. because if you do need it, you're going to be so glad that you planned for having a backup, having a backup of where your password is when you forget it, and you will forget it. You know, or using a password manager in that case, or having a backup of your drivers. Not that it's necessary, but you're going to be doing a lot more work downloading and installing those drivers one by one than what I just demonstrated to you. This couldn't be any easier, but if you want to make your life harder on yourself, then that means you did no preparation. Okay, so that's on you. And that also should have loaded the driver for the fingerprint sensor and everything else. It's done, and it wants to restart. And that was super easy. Now, when it reboots, we'll check the device manager. We can also see how much more space we're using on the drive. It's probably not that much. And then we can go ahead and plug our Ethernet in and start grabbing our Windows updates. Once all that's done, it should automatically reassign our product key and activate Windows 11 Home for us, even though we never entered one, and even though we don't have a Microsoft account. So we're going to verify all that. Once all that's good to go, you can start putting your programs on, set your email up, set your printer up. At this point now, you don't want anything else plugged into it besides the bare minimum to establish a solid foundation. If anything's not working right, it's not going to be caused by anything you did, in the sense that an old backup drive could be failing or not compatible. When you're mixing old hardware and new hardware, you are likely causing that problem through a stubbornness and a determination that you don't want to get rid of something old. As long as you keep the old hardware attached to old hardware, you're good to go. How do you know when it's too old? Well, one way that I can tell you is you do everything the way I'm showing you right now. That includes getting everything done in this order. So until the Windows updates are on there, and until we verified Windows activation, and until we verified everything is running smoothly, we do not add flash drives. We don't add backup drives. We don't add anything USB outside of keyboard and mouse. And until now, I am now finally going to plug it into the internet. If all of that works, then we can start to build one by one on each additional item, so that if there is a failure, we can identify the last thing we changed is our cause. It's that simple. And to do it any other way is rolling the dice. You're hoping it's all going to work. But if it doesn't, you're in for a nightmare of a diagnostic. Likely faster to just start over and do it the way I'm showing you. But if everything works and you hook it all up and it just so happens it works, that's possible too, but nothing I'm willing to risk my time on.
That's right. Listen to your Uncle Carey.
You don't have to listen. I'm just telling you, you can work harder, you can work smarter. Either way, it's your decision and it's your consequences.
Right.
Because I've got so much going on, it's really important for me personally to be able to accurately determine how much time to reserve for each thing. If I'm rolling the dice and something could take a short amount of time or a large multiples of that amount of time, depending on the process I use, I'd rather take the slow way because it's steadier and more predictable, and I can quickly identify any problem. But if no problems happen, you could have said, well, it could have been faster. Well, yes, and I also could have invested in stocks that I knew went up in value. Like, to look backwards and say, well, now we know, that's not helping me. That's, crying over spilled milk. What's happened has happened. We're preparing for what we don't know, but we're hoping is all going to be smooth. But just in case it isn't, and it only takes a couple times when you're in my business to get hung up on a job, then you can't get to the other jobs because you rushed it through. Haste makes waste.
Check your email.
And Mara wants me to check email. Let's do this first. Let me just take a quick look. First of all, does our HDMI port work now? Let's see. Yes, so that did load the driver. And if I come over here, right-click on the device manager, or right-click on the start button and go to the device manager, everything should be fine in there now. No more exclamation points. It's a nothing job and it doesn't require any third-party software. Just use what Microsoft has provided to you. That's why it's there. Companies want to convince you to buy their stuff or use their stuff for free so they can make money from spying on you. And if you want to do that, that's your choice, but the tools are already built into Windows that are already free and that are already spying on you. Okay. And then also, if we look at how much drive space we're using right now after just putting the drivers in, and it's probably downloading updates right now too in the background. Right now we're looking at a total of Yeah, it added 2 gigs to it, so we're at 35. Still, we were at like 62. I'm going to go to Windows Update. We'll check for updates, and while it's checking, make sure to turn this button on here and go to Advanced, and I like to turn these features on. This is my preference. I don't expect the factory to override this. I prefer the factory leave everything alone the way Windows has installed it and just add your drivers, and that's it. That's what we hear over and over and over again from customers, from viewers. Universally, nobody ever says, I wish they gave me a copy of this software or that software. I've never heard anybody ever say that in my life. So I don't know why companies insist that they're adding value. I don't know who they're asking other than themselves or their marketing companies. But if you actually talk to the real customers personally yourself and ask them what they think, in my experience, they don't want that stuff. And if you ask them, does it add any value? Most of them will answer you no, in my experience. And I can tell you that because unlike a marketing company that's telling you what they said, I'm asking them personally. And there's often a very different answer you get. All right, let's right click and go to, I guess we could search for activation. I'm not sure when activation takes place because it's happening in the background and Microsoft doesn't tell you. So we just look at activation settings and you can see the activation state is already active. And what that means is the Microsoft servers, those Windows Update servers, what they've done is they've acknowledged and recognized the unique hardware hash or serial number, if you will, of this computer. And because it had a Windows 11 Home license attached to this motherboard, once it recognizes the motherboard again, it puts that product key automatically back into your registry and automatically activates it without so much as telling you it did it. No Microsoft account login is necessary, and that's the way Windows has been working for like 10 years now, since Windows 10. I love it. I think it's great. Now, the only time that won't work is if the license key was invalid or if you installed the wrong version of Windows. So when I was installing Windows, if I picked Windows 11 Pro, then it would not auto-activate because there was no key on it for Windows 11 Pro. The screen's gone black because of video drivers being put in, and in just a minute that should come back once that driver, there it is, takes effect. And then back over to Windows Update, and we'll go ahead and just let that install. So while that's running, I'll turn camera 1 back on, and we're going to minimize that into a corner. We'll keep an eye on both things, and we'll check our emails. I'm guessing somebody watching me has texted my phone, but I don't know who they are. And this is not an appropriate way to contact me. So whoever you are, if you're a viewer, you're clearly not a customer, first of all, because your name is not in my phone. Normally, this goes right to my spam. It's just by chance I happen to catch it. If you continue to contact me this way, I'm likely never getting your messages. I will emphasize in every single show as many times as it takes for you guys to contact me in the way that we're requesting. If you don't contact us using our email or using our forums, and you insist on contacting me in a way that I'm not specifically guiding you to, do not expect that I am receiving your message. I'm not being rude. I'm simply not getting it. It is by chance I happen to notice. Whoever this is, please do not do this again if you expect a response. Otherwise, knock yourself out. And you'll be talking to thin air. That's weird. Like nobody's done that in a long time. Let's see. Emails. See David Graham. Oh, Mark Gaines. Oh, a very generous contribution from Mark Gaines via PayPal. Mark says, here's a few dollars for the channel. Thanks, Mark. You know, did Peter have a message in his? He did. You know what? I completely missed it. Peter says, hello, Carey and Mara. Tomorrow is my birthday and I'll be 74 years old. I normally buy something for myself, but today I'm doing something different. I'm giving you my birthday present to help you with the renovations. What? Your friend Buster. I never had a friend who bought me a present on their birthday. That's not how this is supposed to work. I don't know what to say. Obviously, thank you, but that's above and beyond. You know, when you think somebody's extraordinarily generous and then they top themselves with being more generous, and on top of that, they do it on their birthday. I don't even know what to say. Wow. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I sure hope you're treating yourself to something on your birthday. Go to dinner, something. Special day. Tomorrow. Wow. Okay. Let me compose myself. I'll get back over to the chat room and see what you guys are saying over here. Frankie B joins us. Hey, welcome in, Frankie. Jim Kenny says, I saw that Gmail was breached. Yeah, who cares? Like I said, it's as long as you have two-factor authentication on, none of this matters anymore. People need to prepare. If you've not prepared, then what you need to do is prepare now. Go and change your password, turn on two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, sometimes referred to as 2FA or MFA, and never use the same password anywhere. If you've got a password for Gmail, don't use that at your bank, vice versa, because if one or the other gets breached, the hackers will try logging in as you with your email credentials and your password. So if you tried to make your life easy, you could also make your life easier by not requiring a key to start your car and not having any locks on your doors and windows that don't roll up. That makes life a lot easier that you don't have to unlock doors and start a car. It also makes it a lot easier for somebody to steal it. So just bear that in mind. When you're making things easier for yourself to log in, you're making it easier for the hackers to log in as you. Now, once you set that up with two-factor authentication and you go through that pain in the butt of the double authentication method, you can check a box to say to remember you, and you can often set a passkey. Big sites like Google and Amazon and Microsoft have already started rolling out the passkey option. If you don't have a fingerprint sensor or a web camera that you can't use biological information in that way, you can buy a USB one that does on Amazon, plug it into your USB reader, and you can now have passkeys enabled. So once you go through that process of setting it up with a long, complicated password, you could do that. You can also download and install a program like RoboForm. To get its full features, you have to pay for it, but it's relatively inexpensive, and it can even do the passkeys for you as well now. We need to bring Simon back on to talk about that because RoboForm continues to be upgraded, updated, and adding new features, and at the same time, they've never had a breach. Even if they did, all the data is encrypted, so there's nothing they can do with the data. On top of that, they've never had an update that caused a Windows crash. In all the years they've been in business, it's never happened. On top of that, you can install RoboForm on as many devices as you want with that one paid license. It's per user. It's not licensed per machine like Windows. It's licensed per user like Windows Server, which you're probably not familiar with. But nonetheless, what that means is when you yourself set up a RoboForm account, you can install it on your phone, your laptop, your work computer, your home computer, whatever you want. There's no additional charge, as much as you want, no limit. On the other hand, if you've got other family members and each one's going to cost a certain amount of money, just like with a cell phone, there are family plans that reduce the amount as long as everybody's on the same company. RoboForm offers a family plan as well. And again, we need to bring Simon back on to talk about these things, but you don't have to use RoboForm. You can continue to just manually log in and check the little box that says remember me, and then every few months it'll just check to make sure it's still you, and always turn on multi-factor or two-factor authentication so that it has a way to verify it's you through another method, typically through a text message or through a email. So even with Gmail, a second factor may require a backup email or a cell phone that it can text you. So think about that. You don't want it to email to verify on an email you're locked out of, because think about it, it's not logical. So you need to have a backup email address, and if it's something you don't use very often, you better take a note of your name and password there, and you better turn on two-factor over there so no one takes that over, because once they have access to your backup, now they're the ones who can say they're you when they try to log into Gmail. And so likely with that other system, you'd make Gmail your backup email for verification, and you make Gmail that other email address for backup verification. And they use different passwords. They both require two-factor, and then you're good to go. It's really super easy security. And again, you can minimize that through using passkeys. I'll ask you if you want to use it. I strongly suggest you say yes if you have a fingerprint sensor. In fact, I don't even think the option will come up unless it determines there's a bio-identifying device, such as a Windows Home compatible webcam. The reason I don't like the face recognition on the webcams is because it requires light. You try and use it in the dark, they don't work very well. Fingerprints, they're not using light. It's an infrared sensor, and it works regardless of how bright or dark the room is. And you want to register more than one finger. I'd register all 5 fingers if I were you. And the reason you do that is if you cut your finger, you've cut the pad of your hand, or you scratched it and it interferes with your fingerprint, it's not going to pass the fingerprint read, so move to the next finger. You got to have backup fingers. I have 10. I don't know how many you have. I have 10. I can lose a few, I'll still have more than 5. You know what I'm saying? It's backups. Mark Baggett said he doesn't know what he'd do without RoboForm. It's nice having passwords generated for me and never needing to remember them. You just remember your one RoboForm password, and even that you can set with a passkey, so you put your fingerprint on it, unlock it. But if for any reason that fingerprint sensor is not working, or the device you're on isn't your normal device, it doesn't have a fingerprint reader, you can always put that RoboForm password in, assuming you can remember just that one. Even that might be too much to ask. But what else can they do, you know? Buster says, to everyone who has wished me a happy birthday, thank you, very much appreciated. Buster's birthday is on a Friday. Man, you got to do something. It's Friday. So in just a minute here, when these updates take effect, we're pretty much back to normal. We're on a clean install with no bloatware. And once all the updates are in, once again, we can check and see the total drive space used. We're probably still going to have a difference of 20 gigs. Now on 1,000 gigs, 20 gigs is a significant percentage of that compared to, say, a 2 terabyte drive or 2,000 gigs. Depending on the size of drive you've got, this can be a bigger deal. Also, depending on how much stuff you plan on putting on, because SSDs will slow down. When you get to a point of about 85% of the drive being full, and there's only 15% of drive space free, your performance goes down the toilet until you take out and free up at least 15% of your total capacity available. That is universal across how solid state drives work. Higher quality drives may get to a smaller amount of free space. You could go 10% maybe, but universally, you will notice a significant, and I do mean significant, decrease in speed. And when that happens, you have to decide, are there things like bloatware that you can remove that can free enough up that you're back to being, freely moving without obstruction? Or is it time to replace the drive to something larger? Or is it time for you to just move that much stuff to an external drive, something like that you can put externally, like on a NAS or cloud, or the flash drive. Whichever way, you have to decide. The more stuff you have, the more it's going to cost you to store it. And usually data only gets bigger. Very much we're adding more data than we ever delete, generally speaking. And where are you going to be next year, the year after that? When are you going to be ready for that? Are you going to be reactive, wait till it happens? Are you going to be proactive and put it in place right now? What I'm showing you today, this is the definition of proactive. It's nowhere near a problem, but it never will be because we've already erased that from a possibility. And so if we do end up filling the space, it'll be because we filled it. But something else to keep in mind, even after Windows installs, there's going to be a lot of those junk files left behind. And that's why I recommend everybody run the disk cleanup command. You don't need utilities like CCleaner and stuff anymore. That's all from yesteryear. We've evolved since then. We don't wear diapers anymore, right? We've evolved, but I've always worn diapers, Carey. Okay, well, you can if you want to. It's a personal pride issue with me. You know, maybe at the end of life, towards the end, we have to wear diapers, and at the beginning. But I kind of feel like I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm assuming you're somewhere in the middle too. So unless you need the diapers, you probably are wearing them for just out of habit because they're just comfortable. Hey, that's fine. It's fine. What I want to show you, though, is even after we've not put any bloatware and we haven't put any software, all we've done are drivers and updates, we're going to have trash laying around, all the empty boxes of all those packages we just opened. So if I come back over here, I guess I can leave it the way it is. Well, I'm just going to type disk cleanup. Everybody with Windows 10 or 11 can do this. I just type the word disk. Disk cleanup is there already at the top. I hit enter. And then I click the button that says to clean up system files right here. And then that's going to study the drive. And now this one's barely used. This is only going to take a minute. Yours could take quite a while. And I'm going to check every box. There's absolutely nothing in any of these boxes I will ever need. Every box with impunity. And you can see now there's just 400 megs. But 400 megs is still half a gig. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK and delete files. The downside of this is that if there's any Windows updates we want to uninstall, we're removing that option. I've never had a Windows update I've ever had to reinstall. Or I should say, if it has happened, I have no recollection of it. It was that long ago. It had to be more than 10 years ago. Also, because the system's running fine after all these updates, why would I need to roll back an update? Like, I should know that relatively soon, immediately. If I've already made it this far, it should be pretty safe to go ahead and remove those updates and free up that drive space. You're watching, you might find hundreds of gigs just sitting on your drive because you've never emptied your trash can. This is different from a recycle bin. This is a trash that's kind of hidden from you that Microsoft is not auto-collecting. I'd love to see Microsoft improve that, but some users foolishly use these folders, these temp folders, to store their files because they think they're outsmarting people. And what they're doing is they're losing all their data. Those are the same people who don't back up. So if you're one of those people, do not follow my advice. In fact, I don't even know what to tell you because you're not using the computer properly. Nobody says you had to. And you were going to have really bizarre problems that nobody's going to know how to fix because you're not using it in a normal way. And if you want to do that and you're okay with those consequences, don't let me get in your way. Now, to verify we're taking out all the temp files, some could be in use right now. I have to restart the computer. Now, when I restart the computer, if it says it's updating, what it's really doing, see here it says restarting. If it says processing updates or finishing updates, that's the disk cleanup finishing. That means there were some files that it could not clean because they were in use. But when they shut the computer down, those files are no longer in use and it can finally erase them. And it'll take care of this on its own, naturally, but I like to force it, get it out of the way and move on. I don't want something happening later as a result of something I forgot I set and then I'm confused. Why is it updating? Oh, it's not updating, it's emptying. Yeah, so I like to clear that off, button it up and move to the next thing. Now, of course, we would go back to Windows Update And we're going to come back over here, Windows Update, and see if there's any more updates to our updates. And also we can check on the advanced options and see if there's any driver updates here, which is showing 0. And yeah, we're still getting a couple updates to our updates. All right, so overall, you know, you're getting a pretty damn fast machine. It's going to do 1080 gaming. It's got USB-C power, which means that if I were to take this laptop with me when I go somewhere, on an airplane, it would not be ideal unless you're in first class, because if you put a laptop of 17 inches wide like this diagonally up on the food tray in front of you, you're going to be like a Tyrannosaurus Rex trying to use it on the airplane. You definitely want a smaller laptop for that. However, I'm not sure what the battery life is. We can look that up. Using this anywhere else, hotels, you've got that big screen, which for me is even more important as I'm aging. That big screen is a lot easier for me to read than a smaller screen for obvious reasons. My first laptop, one of my first, was a 13-inch screen. When I look at that today, I'm like, what was I thinking? So I've changed, right? What I found to be lightweight, ultra portable, and easy to tote around, open up on the tray in front of me on the airplane, and my eyes, I wasn't wearing glasses, it all looked fine to me. Today, not tolerable anymore. I think the ideal screen size is 15 inches or thereabouts, 15, 16 inches on laptops, as being both a permanent desktop replacement or to travel with it. When you get to 17, it's a little more difficult to travel with. Not much. And you're going to pay more. The bigger the screen, the more money the laptop will cost, and the lower the battery life will be. The biggest energy eater of your laptop, even of your computer in most cases, aside from a video card if you have one, will be your monitor. So then that means you need a bigger battery. That's why gaming laptops, you know, end up weighing 16 pounds, and they run really hot, they run really loud, and they have terrible battery life. It's a huge energy eater. So for me to be able to get work done, to be practical, take it with me to a hotel, 17's a bit big for me personally. But it's not so big that I would necessarily not consider it. It depends if I'm flying, if I'm driving, how long I'll be gone, and how much benefit there is to a big screen. Because with this laptop and an HDMI out, once I'm at the hotel, I can bring my own HDMI cable in most cases and just run this laptop right out to the television in the hotel room. Just reach around back, plug it in, use the remote, select your source. If the remote doesn't have a source button, there's usually, you Google it, and there's usually a way to get in with the buttons on the TV. And all the TVs have buttons, and you manually use the buttons on the TV to select your input source. And what I do is I unplug my cable and put the input source back the way it was. Not that I have to, but I don't want to do that to the hotel staff because they probably don't know how to do it, right? And then the next person who gets the hotel room goes to watch TV, and it's on input source 2, and they're calling the front desk going, I can't watch TV. And the front desk is like, I don't know why you got TV. And they're like, well, I don't know why I can't watch TV. And I'm standing over here going, seriously? None of you understand what's happening? So to avoid all that, out of courtesy for fellow human beings, both the employees and future customers that stay in that room, I put it back the way I found it. And if that's the case, I don't even need a laptop. I can bring a mini PC with that little keyboard and mouse, and I'm good to go. So, because if I'm in a hotel room and I'm going to use their monitor, I'm also going to plug it in. I don't need a battery. So it depends on where I'm going, how long I'll be gone. But absolutely, this covers the basis regardless of my personal preferences. All right, let's take a quick look in the chat, and we're just about at our 2-hour mark. This has our drivers on it. I'm going to go ahead and copy the drivers off now. So I'm going to go over to the yellow folder. I don't want these drivers anymore on my flash drive because I use this flash drive in multiple computers. So I'm going to cut instead of copy and paste. I'm going to cut. I'm going to go into the downloads folder and just paste it right in there. And that way the drivers will stay on the machine. It would be nice if manufacturers included that, but universally it's more or less agreed upon that if you want that sort of stuff, go to the manufacturer's website and download the latest versions from them. If you're buying a machine that does not have a website, such as the Gatorli brand, you probably paid a lot less for it, okay? Although, I will say with Nimo, I'm not so certain their prices are so good, and they're not sacrificing website and support, which a lot of other companies do. That's what fascinates me about this company. And the quality of material seems really good. Also, they often sell bare bones versions of their products, meaning you can get it without storage or RAM, put your own in. We've already demonstrated one of those here. And they likely do that, I think, with all the models. But what I want to do now is just show you how easy these are to open. Now, I've never opened this one before, but I expect it to be as simple to get into and as easy to work on as all the other models of Nimo we've worked on before. So let's just verify that that still holds true with this model here, because that's another added incentive. Some laptops, and even the expensive ones from big name brands, they don't want you in them, and they make it very difficult. Sometimes they glue things closed. You need a hot air gun on some of them to get into them, and they're very easy to break or crack. But on the Nimo laptops, they're just screws, and you just take the back off. So let's see if it's more of that. So looking at the back, we've got the screws along the edges, and then two in the middle. This is very reminiscent of what we've done before. It doesn't look like they've changed the enclosure. But again, I just want to verify. So we're going to take out my my Natch toolkit here. And I definitely got to wear my glasses because we have a Phillips head. That's the other thing. They're not using... Hold on a minute. Let me get my thicker glasses out. I think they're just a standard number 0 Phillips is what it looks like. Number 1 or number 0. Yeah, they're Phillips. They're not Torx bits that HP and Dell and others like to use, which is very discouraging because they can be super teeny tiny and you got to be real careful with them. These are pretty much your everyday ordinary Phillips screws of that size. So let me take a look and find what I think will be the right one. I want the biggest one that I think will fit, just to get the best. I want it to sit in there really tight so it doesn't cam out and round out the inside of it. So you always start with the biggest one you think that will fit and then work your way down. There we go. And I think we can go to the close-up on this if it'll work. Yeah. So we're just going to go across the bottom, up the edges, into the middle. And when I take these out, I'll set them in order. The back will be to the back, well, your front. The middle I'll put to the next level. That the screws necessarily have to go exactly in the same holes, but I at least want the longer screws separated from the shorter screws, and I don't want to guess. Sometimes on laptops, these screws at the corners end up being your longer screws. They sometimes are the hinge support, and so they have to be more robust. So as long as I'm, when I'm doing this, a very simple process, instead of like having a tray to drop all these in, is I just take them out and put them in order of removal. So I will end up putting all the exact same screws in the exact same holes. That's not necessary. However, it's just a way that 100% works no matter what you're working on. Not everything follows the same rules. Most things do, but when you run into that occasion where you now have to start guessing which screw went where, it's a time eater. And remember, when you're in business, time is money. Clients are waiting. The client is waiting for you to fix it, and another client's waiting for you to start their repair. So if we can just put these screws down in a specific order, we have to put them down anyway. It's very little extra effort to reduce any sort of issue of confusion or complexity. So we're now working on the middle row. So that's the far row. So when I take these screws out, I'll set them again from right to left, my right to my left, in the of whatever layer they were in. Now these screws are a little bit on an angle here on the edges. That's pretty common. whereas these screws are completely straight up. But because we have a beveled edge, the screws are also going in on that angle. Now see, these two in the middle are longer, but yet it was the two on the edges. Now, maybe you got a better memory than me, but I got to put them down anyway, so might as well just put them down in the order I've taken them out, and it's just a non-issue because of the process. So now I have to angle this driver if I want this to go in smooth. Boy, it almost feels like this screwdriver is a little too big for that screw head. But again, I'm doing that on purpose to keep the head of the driver from stripping out the inside of the screw or camming it out. These definitely are going to be on an angle. And it's likely easier for me to grab that angle with a smaller bit. I think I'm going to be stubborn about it. There it goes. And you should take your time. I'm trying to rush through it because we're live, but maybe I should have gone one tip smaller here. But I do appreciate that it's not slipping, and that if it's slipping outside of the screw, not inside of it. And I get a little extra leverage with a bigger driver, so I don't have to use so much muscle. Let the screwdriver do the work as much as possible. One last screw right here. There's no particular order you have to follow to take the screws out. I personally would not use an electric driver on screws this small, but that's just me. You guys can do what you feel. Now, as far as taking the bottom off, this is the question. How difficult is this? Will it require a spudger? Will it require a hot air glue gun? Or do you just lift it up? See what I'm saying? Like, on top of how inexpensive this is, on top of how much power it has, on top of how quiet it is and how big the screen is, look at how easy that we can get in here. We've got a RAM module here and a RAM module here. This is both DDR5 and completely upgradable. It's in dual channel. They didn't just give you one. It looks like you have two. And if we take one out just to see, we have ADATA branded RAM. If I bring it up close to the camera, assuming I can walk around my empty box pile, bring it up to the camera and give you the make and model and everything. It's pretty industry standard. Nothing unique or proprietary there. DDR5 SODIMM RAM that's not soldered in. Okay. And again, we do have DVR mode on, so if I'm running through things a little quickly, you can always pause the screen as long as you need to while we're live, and then catch back up with us. Or come back later and rewatch the video and pause it if I'm not leaving it on long enough for you to establish whatever it is you're looking for or reading. Coming back over here, we have a Kensington. This is the NV3 1 terabyte drive. There is no, oh, there is another socket right here for an NVMe. So in theory, you could add a second NVMe drive here. Yeah, this tip is definitely too wide for that. But just to show you, if I grab, let's try that one. There we go. Take that screw out. This NVMe drive can also be placed over here. So you have this location and this location, and you can use them both at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back. This piece here is your Wi-Fi card, so if you wanted to upgrade your Wi-Fi, it's already 6E, so I don't know why you would, but that's where you can do that and then attach your antennas back on. This is your It's like a daughter board. This is going to have the USB Type A, this is USB 3 Type A, USB 2 Type A. There's our memory card reader, headphone jack, and our Kensington lock is in this big metal area here that secures the laptop from being, they can't just rip the cable out of it. It's not just the plastic, it's being held in by the metal frame. All right, let me put this back where it was. When you tighten down an NVMe drive just till it's snug, don't take it any further than snug. It does not have to be airtight. And what you can do is you can bend it, and then over time it can cause a problem with the circuit board, with the connections. Overall, you know, we've got our fan here, It's ejecting air out here. This is the daughter board here. And this is your motherboard from this area right here. And it stops here. The rest of this is battery and screen. This is a big empty space. This is your speaker over here and over here that's giving you your audio through the laptop. The battery is easily swappable, as you can see. If the battery were to fail on us, it's a couple of screws that hold the battery in with this cable. You pop it out, get yourself a new one, and that's pretty much all there is. I mean, it's a relatively simple design, easy to work on, no proprietary parts, upgradable to a second NVMe drive, upgradable Wi-Fi, upgradable RAM, on a 17-inch screen with a 90-day return and a 2-year warranty. All for, what did I say? On sale, $700 or so, depending on how you configure it. If you know of a better deal, please tell me what it is. I don't know where that is. Where did that come from? I'd have to play back the video to see where that little piece came from. I don't think that's supposed to come off. By the way, all these clips that hold this back panel in, these are all metal, unlike plastic. These look like it's a piece of metal. At least some of it does. Yeah, that's metal. So those little plastic clips that break off, they're not going to break off on this bad boy. Excellent design. Again, the model on this here is the N177. And if I bring this up to the camera right quick, let me go back over to camera 1. And let me walk over here. Let me walk around my maze. I threw all the boxes right in my own path. See, didn't plan ahead. Here we go. Glasses off. Can I pose with it? I'm gonna do a selfie. I gotta get the whole thing in the frame, right? My arms aren't long enough. Thumbnail! All right. Don't mind me, I'm goofing. I know, what's new? All right. Any questions? We're right at 3 o'clock. So if you have any questions for me while I'm putting this together, please do ask at this time. Otherwise, once we get this back together, fire it up, make sure I didn't break anything, we'll call it a day. But we'll stick around as long as you have questions. So how long we continue is up to you. All right. Now I get my glasses back on again. I'll put these screws right back in the same way I took them out. Not necessarily in the same order that I've taken them out, but definitely in the same place that they were removed. See how my system works so easy. All I got to do is take the one in the far bottom right to go to the far bottom right of the laptop. Such rocket science. What a genius I am, he said sarcastically. And I think I am going to try the smaller bit because it does seem like these ones on an angle are a bit of a struggle with that larger bit. And this bit actually sinks in a little deeper. Oh, and that's interesting too. I just found this by mistake. There seems to be a magnet back here because when I drop the screw, look at that. Don't go anywhere. I don't know if we can go close up on 2. When I put the screw here, there's a magnet in there for some reason. I don't know why. See, sometimes we just stumble on stuff. Well, hey, look at that. Is that a feature or a bug? I'm not sure what that's there for. All right, let's put these back in. Oh yeah, that bit's a lot better. I don't think I'm going to use this one anymore. But like I say, you should start with the largest one you think will fit. And I probably should have, for comparison, just to verify, tried the next one down. But I said, this one will work. And it did for most of them, but it was a little struggle for like these on an angle. So I think this one will probably work equally for them all. And that's why it's good to have a variety here if you're doing this kind of work. Because you might even find that, well, this bit is working fine for these. Maybe it won't work fine for the ones that the other bit worked well for. Either way, you can make it work. It's just how much effort you want to put into it. And I just want to make sure I'm not camming anything out here. And you don't want to put these screws in too tight. They definitely want to be snug. And they should run with the surface. So if you're running your finger across the edge here and you feel the top of the screw, it's either not in straight or not tightened down all the way, or the lid is not snapped in place there at that point. Little tips from your Uncle Carey. Yeah, I think this bit's gonna be the one ideal one for this entire thing. I don't know that these are labeled at all. I'll tell you the size of it. It says it's a PH0, so Phillips head 0. Which is what I said it was when we started, right? Don't torque down on these, I'm telling you. You'll know if they're in all the way because you'll run your hand over it. And if you feel the screw sticking up, it's not in all the way. Or if the screw goes in on an angle and you've put it in straight, then it'll be up on one side and it'll be cattywampus. You have to take the screw out, try again. And then you're going to want to check your seams and make sure all the seams are good. If they're not, you just need to push down until it clicks into place. Unless you've broken the little tab off on some laptops, in which case you're just going to have to put the screw in and tighten it down a little bit more to close the seam. That usually happens with older laptops. And for that reason, due to the threat of cross-threading and how shallow these screws are, I don't see any point in using an electric driver. They do make micro electric drivers for this kind of work. I don't do enough of it that I feel comfortable, familiarizing myself with the feel of the driver. And this is such little effort to put these in. I kind of feel like it's actually faster for me to do it by hand. But to each their own on that. I think it's just a preference. I just like the control I have over how much tension I put on the screws and how the screws feedback as they go into the mounts to ensure that they're not being cross-threaded, which can often be numbed by an electric driver. These hinge screws, I just want to make sure they're nice and secure. Don't over-tighten them. But do check the seams back there. This is a common area of breakage on most laptops, are the hinges. And so you want to make sure it's assembled correctly to have the most, oh, just lost my focus, to have the most strength. Excuse me, there it is. Now in theory, if I didn't break anything, it should turn back on. Sometimes just opening the lid is enough to turn some laptops on. Sometimes it's an option in the BIOS to enable or disable that feature. Looks like we're all off here, so I'll turn this on. Blue light comes on the side. And then while that's booting, I hope it boots if I didn't break it, I can put away my toolkit for next time. These are my magnifying glasses that make everything more than 2 feet away super blurry. But when I'm looking at anything really close up, they're much more powerful. Normally just for reading smaller things. These glasses here are far less strong and I can see much more comfortably at a distance. But I put these on because I want to look at your chat and see if there's any questions I've missed. And he says, thanks for the fish. So long and thanks for all the fish. Nemo. Our friend Buster is going to bed. Hey, thank you so much for sharing the day and your generosity with us, Buster, if you're still there. And we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow on Friday's show. We hope you'll be joining us then. And we've got a Radeon mini PC. Very similar to this in power and performance. It's not high-end, but it's not budget. It does fit into nearly high-end, but more of a mid-range price, the same as this laptop. They're both very compelling for value, in my opinion. I'll let you decide when you see for yourself, but that'll be tomorrow. And maybe we'll get back to some more of the recycling from Emerald Computers. I was happy to see our friend Jason, the owner of Emerald Computers, joining into the comment section of the video. So if you haven't gone back and revisited it, he's left a few comments regarding some of the equipment we worked on, which it's nice to see him watching the videos and talks a little bit about that micro server that threw me. He was very familiar with what that was and how he got them. So anyway, he left that comment along with a few others there. Feel free to stop in and leave him a comment saying hello to him, to his comment too. I'm sure he'd appreciate that. Proteva says that's a nice laptop and it's not too expensive. Yeah, on top of that, very affordable. And it has a camera up here with a privacy sensor, privacy shutter you can open and close. The privacy shutter's right up here at the top. It'll close it and open it. It's not, super high-end camera, but for webcam. I don't know that that's Windows Home passkey compliant. I don't know. I'm going to assume no. But you do have the fingerprint sensor here anyway, which I would personally recommend over the camera, because even if the camera is Windows Home, what do they call it? I thought they call it Home, but it still requires a certain amount of light for it to see your face. This fingerprint sensor works in all lighting. So I'm just going to assume that that's just for like Zoom and, casual. It's not a high resolution, low light camera, but it is a camera and it does the job of a camera. It's not necessarily a security device. And it's nice that it has the shutter on it so you can close the lens if you're not using it. You don't have to wonder if anybody's spying on you. Okay, let's see. If you're curious about the processor performance, it's going to perform pretty much on par with any other mobile machine that uses this mobile processor. They're not really doing anything other than assigning different efficiency ratings to them for heat and battery life that I would leave at the default. But if you want to go into the BIOS and make those adjustments, you can. But rest assured, it's not going to run any faster than what any potentially other same make and model of processor being used in any other mobile platform is going to perform, unless you change the processor, which is soldered onto the board, which means you got to change the whole board. Ideally, these are turnkey solutions. They're meant to be taken out of the box and to be used. If you want something you want more control over at higher price points, there's things like framework laptops and such that'll cost you a lot of money. You can even change a video card, just the video card in a framework, for the cost of this old laptop. If you like that flexibility and you've got the wallet to stand behind it, other companies do make machines for that purpose. This is not one of those. This is for literally everyone else, the masses who don't just want basic and can't afford a high-end gaming machine. Regular 1080 gaming on this, pretty much anything should be fine. And if you want to look up what this processor and its included mobile graphics chip have as far as performance goes, because there's so many different games, you're going to have to Google that for the game you want to play to get an idea of what frames per second that chip can do, not what the laptop can do. That's why I think a lot of this testing that you're watching on a lot of the content creators is irrelevant and unnecessary, because it's not specific to that machine within maybe a couple of frames per second. If you're that finicky about a couple of frames per second, again, you can solve that by opening your wallet. You can be as picky as you want to be as long as you're willing to pay for it. For the average consumer, playing games on this should be just fine. If you demand certain frames per second of, some ridiculous amount beyond, anything beyond 30, for me anyway, is fine. And if it's 60, great. Anything above 60, I can't see any difference. I don't think a human can. But maybe you disagree, but there's money that can fix that. When it comes to, can I play the game I want to play? Yes, this will play it. It'll play it at 1080. It should be very playable. It depends on the game and how you've set up your resolution settings. So a lot of that's user configurable within the games themselves. And any mobile platform, mini PC or laptop that uses this AMD chip will perform the same, within a variation of margin of error of a couple percentage, 2-3% of frame rate. If 2-3% of frame rate is concerning to you, I don't know why you're even considering anything like this. It's not designed for that. It's not designed to be tuned to that level. If you leave it the way it's factory tuned, you will get the longest battery life, the most reliable, most stable platform that will last you probably far beyond its warranty. But the minute you think you can outsmart them and you want to generate more power out of it, you're going to use more power, your battery life's not going to last as long, your fans are probably going to have to run harder and longer, and likely you're going to have component failure sooner rather than later, because you're forcing it to work harder for a longer period of time that isn't as sustainable and has a reduction of battery life as a result as well. But you still can make some changes that way. But there are better machines in that regard if that's what you're after. And they're likely not at this price point. They're likely at least twice as much, if not even more than that. So set your expectations within your budget, and I think you'll be happy. These do have a 90-day return, so you have plenty of time to decide if it's going to meet your needs. A lot of times, people will sit there and do all the math in their head, but until they get it in their hands, you really don't know how it feels looking at it online. You can't feel this unless it's in front of you. You really can't feel its responsiveness, and you really can't hear it the way you can in person. And it's that, if you're interested but you're curious, and so now you're doing all this research, the single best research, if you're serious about considering this, is to simply buy one. If you can't decide having it in your hands after 90 days, it sounds like you like it. Okay?
just trying to be helpful. You should know if you like it pretty much right away. Like once you start familiarizing yourself with its responsiveness, the way it feels, the way it responds to the things you're asking it to do, you are going to know right then and there. I guarantee it. And if you're still, yeah, you want to try a few more things, yeah, maybe it'll take a couple days. Shouldn't take you 90 days. It's a very generous return period. How confident does a company have to be? I want you to think about this to offer that. How confident? It's not once you buy it, it's as is. Too bad, so sad. It's, you can look at this online all day. You can read all the articles you want, and you can look at what other people do with it. But until it's in your own hands, using it the way you uniquely use it and what you uniquely expect from it, the hard part Nimo has is making you aware that it exists, and that if it's something that you think might be of value, buy the darn thing and see. Don't worry about what anybody else thinks. You've got 90 days. They're so convinced that if you would so much as give it a test, you won't want to give it back. Who else does that? That's a pretty confident offer. Because clearly, if they were selling something that's likely to be returned through dissatisfaction, that it's not meeting needs or expectations, you can't sustain your business. You'll take too many losses. So there's a lot of confidence in that to basically tell you, you have no reason to have to do all that research. If you so much as think it might be a solution for you, buy that and see. Don't worry about what anybody else says. Nobody's going to be using it the way you are exactly. Nobody has your exact values and expectations. So buy it. If you don't like it for any reason, you have 90 days to return it for a full refund. Now, if you're not interested in it, it's not going to meet your needs, and you just find these videos entertaining, that's fine too. But I want you to really read behind that 90-day return and how unusual that is. It's, you know, we have companies that before they will let us review a product, they demand we show them our video before we're allowed to show it to you. And we don't make those arrangements. What are they afraid that we're going to see? That doesn't make any sense. Do they not trust us? Do they think we're going to somehow attack them for no reason? Of course not. We're going to expose something they don't want exposed? Don't send it to me for review. And certainly don't ask me to hide it from my audience if you do. And Nimo has done exactly that. They've sent us the laptop with no expectations and no demands. They're just politely asking that we make time to review it. They didn't even ask necessarily for a dedicated video, but the amount of time it takes to do this doesn't leave any time to check anything else. So we end up making them a 2-hour dedicated video, and it costs them nothing. Nimo does want the laptops back. They ask us to return them. I don't know if they end up being resold as refurbished units or what they do with them, but we personally, we have a lot of laptops laying around here. I would have no qualms using it. I just don't need it. So when Nimo says, hey, can you return the laptop after the review? I'm like, if you guys pay for shipping, I'm happy with that. And they send us a prepaid label. I put everything back in the box the way it came, just as you would if you were returning it for a refund. Save the box until you know you're keeping it. And then it gets it out of here, right? Because for us to not use it, it's a shame to let it sit on a shelf. That does not offend me at all. In fact, I wish more companies would take back the stuff they send us because we're running out of space. And it doesn't mean their stuff's not good. It's just that we already have equivalent or better, like with this laptop. I have a laptop that's a $3,000 laptop that meets a bit more needs that I have for production, including a discrete mobile graphics card in it that this doesn't have. That doesn't mean it's bad. I also have a little bit smaller of a screen, a 16-inch screen. Not that much smaller, but it makes a difference to me in my personal preferences. So we have a perfectly good machine. It's perfectly capable that we don't have any use for personally. So once we do the review, we're stuck with it, or we have to spend money even to give it away. So to return it back to the manufacturer, the benefit for you is if you're looking for deals, Nimo has a refurbished section, and this might be just where this goes. I don't know what they do with them. Maybe they'll analyze the changes I made on the operating system and compare it and test what I'm telling them. Maybe they don't. I have no idea. I don't ask. I don't care. But just so you know, behind the scenes, we do return these back to Nimo at their request. And in fact, we prefer it. Okay? So this isn't going to be under a long-term review. We won't have any use for it to test it. It won't sit on a shelf just for 6 months. We can see if it still works. That's pointless. Let it find a good home where somebody will appreciate it. And then that way Nimo can keep sending us more stuff that we can review, and then we don't have to find more places to store it. And I really need to go back in the video and find out where the heck this little piece came from. I don't think it's important. And maybe it's just some packing. But it bothers me to not know. All right. So if I scroll through here, Proteva says, is there a difference between Copilot Plus PCs and the laptop you have there today? So a Copilot Plus PC will have a Copilot button. Microsoft requires the manufacturers add a Copilot dedicated button to the keyboard. And the processor also has to have an NPU. I don't know if this processor has an NPU. If the processor has an NPU, doesn't automatically mean it's qualified or that it was submitted to Microsoft for qualification for Copilot Plus. Again, the Copilot will run on any computer. It's just how it runs. So if we wanted to bring Copilot up on this, we still will have a Copilot icon here. Yeah, right over here by the start search menu. I'm running on batteries right now, which is, oh, and I'm not plugged into the internet. That's going to be a big problem if I'm trying to run Copilot without internet access, unless I have like a local language model installed. So let me plug the internet back into it. I'm like, that shouldn't be taking that long. This laptop's way faster than that. Don't mind my confusion. But yeah, those machines that are Copilot Plus, they're going to have a dedicated Copilot button. Microsoft requires them to do that to qualify. I think Microsoft cares more about that than the consumers do, at least at this stage. All right, we're still obtaining an IP address. So once that comes up, let me try hitting Copilot again. Is that going to work? Yeah. Here we go. Accidentally opened the browser. Close that. Oh, now I got to answer all the browser questions here. Yeah, there's Copilot. We just don't have a Copilot button. There may be a couple other things, but I think that's primarily it. And you know, in 2025, as we talk about this, you might think, well, what's the big deal? But in 2028, you might wonder, how can they sell a computer without it? It's hard to know which way the technology is going to go and how our culture and society accept or reject it, whether it's an Apple Lisa or Newton, a Microsoft Zune, or VR ready. Sometimes these things take off like a rocket and we wonder, like Wi-Fi. Can you imagine not having Wi-Fi? But when it first came out, very few people had it and very few people understood why you'd want it. With the advent of cheaper mobile devices and certainly cell phones getting internet access, that demand wasn't there for a few years. And all of a sudden now people can't live without it. And it's really hard to predict between marketing and the way the culture adopts things, willingly or unwillingly, how long you have for a product to take hold before you just walk away from it. Copilot's still in very early stages. And so for right now, the attitude might be, well, who cares? Right now, most people probably say, who cares?
The companies care, the branding cares, and that's primarily the difference, from best I can see it. So I appreciate that question, the good question there. Dustin Fuller saying thanks for the stream. Andy W6AD says they have the fish. The Greeniest said Nimo seems very impressive. That's why we brought them on and why we continue to bring them on. Because if they keep putting out product like this, you know they have mini PCs. We've never seen one yet. I'm very interested in seeing how they compare with other mini PC manufacturers and how similar it is with support, warranty, and build quality to the laptops. I expect more of the same, so I want to see it. So we're talking with them about that. But I'm only doing one thing at a time. So I don't want them sending me every product in their catalog. I don't have any room for it. It's a common theme. Andy says maybe the rain they're getting will make it to Phoenix. One can hope. We are expecting some rain all throughout this next week. We are in our monsoon season, so it's hot and muggy out there. It's miserable, but I always welcome the rain. It takes all the mosquitoes away, at least while it's raining. After the rain, they come back twice as bad as they were before, and it's super muggy, but it also knocks all the dust out of the air and everything smells clean. Bajan guy said it's a lot easier getting into this than getting into his wife's laptop. Yeah, well, you've seen me struggle with a few. All of the Nimos have been easy, consistently. Doma 2000s mentions there's also no hidden screws. That's a valid point, that there's no like warranty void if you break the sticker, which isn't even legally enforceable. It's not a thing in the United States. It's all an illusion. But the fact is they didn't hide screws under rubber feet. They didn't hide screws under stickers, and there were no sort of warning stickers discouraging you from opening it. That is a valid point that adds value, as far as I'm concerned, to the machine, you know, not trying to lock you out of your own thing. That's something Louis Rossman ought to love, right? Rome wants to know, Romek, when do I do the next build? You know, people are, the society that we're living in right now, are not really buying built computers like they used to. We would ordinarily get a few build requests every week, and I was having a very difficult time keeping up. And since the pandemic, it started to fade out. And most of the gaming PC manufacturers are suffering right now. And I think if nothing turns around, if the culture of society have, for the most part, turned away and abandoned that as being too expensive or too difficult to maintain or too much of a security risk, I don't know why, but culturally the business has died by I'm going to guess like 95, 98%. If I had 100 customers that wanted to buy a computer last year, well, prior to the pandemic, it's 2 customers now. So it seems like those last 2 customers may be hangers on until eventually they will have gone completely to mini PCs or to pre-builts or to laptops. That's pretty much it now. If there is a resurgence, you have to understand, even the esports gaming competitions, they're going bankrupt. The whole industry is, we're witnessing it failing. When people have to pay $800 to have a computer built and wait for it because they want the RGB and everything, they still exist, but they're pretty uncommon now. We have a local custom gaming company here in Phoenix, and I don't know how they're paying their bills. And I won't mention their name, but if and when they close their doors, which I think will be by the 1st of the year, then I'll talk about it. But I can't, there's just, the business is so slow. I imagine they must have days where nobody even walks in the store.
YouTube views are consistently down. Advertising is consistently down. Everything is pretty much bottomed out, and what's left seems to be evaporating, but I don't know how long the evaporation will take. The remainder of what we're getting now is becoming more niche when it was very, very much culturally of interest, and now the culture has moved their interest to something else. I'm not quite sure what it is. Some content creators here on YouTube have found that they can make a lot more money on Snapchat. I'm not interested in moving over to Snapchat, but somebody like David Dobrik, you very rarely see on YouTube, who was doing very well on YouTube, seemingly disappeared. But no, what he did is he moved over to Snapchat, and he's making way more money over there than he ever made over here. So I think that's similar. Whoever was buying the gaming computers, they've shifted into buying something else. I don't know what it is. And when it comes to even regular PC builds, all of that has pretty much dried up. Even the businesses that were moving forward to replacing Windows 10, they're now procrastinating that to next year. So I have a handful of Windows 11 upgrades to do between now and the end of or middle of October, maybe like 5, but there were originally about 20. So 3/4 of them decided, if we can get another year out of it, we're going to wait. We don't want to spend the money. So the business seem to be struggling. The consumers seem to be struggling. Prices are going up. The tariffs here aren't helping. People are losing their jobs. Intel's suffering. The government, the U.S. government's going to invest in Intel to help keep them alive. And in my life, these things happen. It's a cyclical, where we kind of go through a little tough period. It lasts however long it lasts, and then things get good again. So we just have to stay afloat until things get good again. And things may never be good again on YouTube. They may never return, but it may be a different platform. And, you know, Spotify is now offering videos, and of course there's Rumble and Odyssey. They might gain more traction, or some new player might step in. Somebody like Netflix or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos might step in for content for their video platforms, offering a much better algorithm and payment than YouTube. And YouTube may be MySpace in a couple of years if they continue in this path. I don't want to see that happen, but I'm seeing it every day get worse. So the whole thing, it's not just PC building, it's the whole thing that we do in tech, aside from businesses. And businesses at this point are still trying to, you know, they're laying people off. They're trying not to buy any equipment they don't need to buy until times get better. I don't know many businesses that are hiring right now. Some are, but it's just the economy and the state of things currently. I don't expect it's going to stay that way until we're dead. I've gone through this in the 80s. I've gone through this in the 90s. It lasts for a little while, and then things come back, and they're better than ever. So we just hang in there. Whether or not interest returns in computers, I don't expect it to, but I hope it does. Very rarely, once we've moved on, do we ever go backwards. Once people moved on from VCRs to DVD players, it was just a matter of time. And you can probably still find people running a VHS player, but they're pretty few and far between. The news might talk about a resurgence in vinyl records or cassette tapes, but it's a resurgence for cassette tapes, but it's not a resurgence for the music industry. In other words, if cassette tapes were selling 0.001% of all music albums, and now they've gone up to 3%, that is a massive increase in interest, but it's still nothing compared to the way the masses buy their music through streaming services. I don't think that's ever going to change. But when they see a spike in like album sales for a vinyl album, they go, oh, look, vinyl's coming back. Yeah, it went from 0.05% of niche vinyl collectors to now 2 or 3%, which is 6 times bigger than it was. And it's making 6 times more money this year than it did last year. And that's a news story. But overall, it's still 97% less than what the streaming services are selling. And by comparison, you wouldn't even notice it exists when you look at the sales figures. They're laughable, but yet 6 times bigger than they were. And it's probably a fad. So there's a bunch of people interested in nostalgia, or they're interested in old school analog, but it's not the general population. It never will be. Not unless we go back to like Fallout. There's a dystopian future, and you have to rely back on analog because of a devastation of all electricity, or I don't know, digital life. But be that as it may, it is what it is, and we certainly will show builds as permitted. But the problem is, ultimately, if a build costs $800 to make the video will make $100, period. Its whole life, that's all it'll make. So to make a computer build video will cost me out of my pocket $700. The only way we can do that is if members request it and members are willing to make up for it, or we accept a sponsorship from a company that tells us potentially what we have to say. We read a script, we read their words, we show their product, not the product we want to show, the product they want us to show, and then they give us money when we do it, they approve it, and then we can show it to you. And I'm not too excited about doing that either. So that's where we're at today. We'll see how it progresses forward. The channel will alter and change depending on the interests of the viewers. If we go back that way, we're going to go back that way. If you guys go off in a different direction, if we can, we'll follow. We'll follow the interests of the public. But we don't control it. David Graham, life would never be the same without you. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? No, thank you, David. Andy says mini computers are the future, even in gaming. I think you're right. Yeah, especially with the AMD Strix. It's powerful as that internal graphics is. It's only going to get better from there. Plus the advent of AI. People that are creators aren't even creating. They're letting the AI do it for them. It's the needs of the computer are changing, and the way people use them is changing. So we just have to wait and see how that develops. Beckman said, I remember in the late 90s and early 2000s visiting my local computer store at least once a month or once a week, but lately I haven't since May of 2022, as doing less risky stuff, and I have less problems. Good points, all good points. You also probably don't go to Circuit City anymore. You know what I mean? Like, the interest of the public has waned. The company can't stay in business. They close up all the shops. They're gone. We had Fry's Electronics out here. They're completely gone. So these things tend to kind of come and go in waves, and it's the natural order of things. And all things come and go in waves. How big the waves are, that's hard to predict. But when that wave starts going down, it usually doesn't go back up again, sometimes. If you look at like the advent of the electric vehicles, especially with Tesla, they became very, very popular, especially in California, Oregon, and places that are very eco-minded, but just all over the world in general. And China's included with their own manufacturers, and everybody's talking about electric vehicles. Now nobody's talking about them. Nobody wants them. Well, when I say nobody, what I'm really meaning is that the general public is not as excited about them. The value of those cars has gone right through the floor. Will there be a re-interest? Will it reignite? Maybe, probably not. What's probably going to happen, if I had to guess, is people aren't even going to want to drive. So a vehicle will show up and take them somewhere, and they won't give a rat's behind if it's an electric vehicle or a gas vehicle. What do they care? So the electric vehicle may have a resurgence as a utility, as a driverless, automated, autonomous taxi to pick you up and take you where you need to go. And we will likely see a future where there will be more autonomous vehicles on the road with fewer accidents and no speeding, no dangerous driving, no street takeovers, that will take you to work and bring you back to work. And it'll always be there, and it'll always be on time. It'll be very rare that you ever have a breakdown that they just couldn't send a second vehicle and you might be 2 minutes late, versus you having a breakdown and you're stuck at the side of the road until a tow truck shows up, plus the cost of the repair bill and the insurance. I see the future going away from ownership of vehicles, away from driving, and more into a utility, which will likely drive that electric vehicle market to be more profitable. And so we don't know yet. I'm guessing. I foresee that, but I could be completely wrong. And there will always be gas cars. There's way too many of them made, but you'll start seeing them less and less frequently. You know, it'll be more the niche collectors and historians and gearheads that really like the rumble of a gasoline engine. And then part of society will probably think those people don't care about the planet and they're killing their children's lives
And there's going to be arguments and fights over it because they're trying to do what's right for the planet, and these people don't care. So we're going to have more turmoil in that regard as well. That seems pretty easily predicted. That's going to happen. We're a human race. We find something. If there was nothing to argue about and nothing to die over, we'll find something stupid. That's my rock. That's my grain of sand. It's just human nature to want to attack one another. We wouldn't know, as a general population, how to be kind and live in peace. Some of us do. Most of us do not. As a result, I expect more of that in ways that we just won't know. There's no way to predict how it's going to happen, but it'll happen. But with cars and fuel going to electric for a consumers making less and less sense, and consumers are sending that message, and you can see it in the value of the stock and in the value of the cars. That doesn't mean electric vehicles are dying. It means that for consumer use, electrical vehicles may not make sense. But for like big semi-trucks, I mean, they have semi-trucks in China that don't even have a cab. It's the strangest thing you'll ever see on the road. It's the what do you call the back of the truck? The trailer. And then at the end of the trailer, there's like a little thin thing like this. That's the cab of the truck. Nobody can get inside of it. It's just a computer, and it drives it autonomously. In China, you can find videos on YouTube. It's freaky. Maybe we got more of that coming. I don't know. But that's where we're at. We're in the middle of a change right now. And we'll see. It's sort of like a snake shedding its skin, or a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, maybe. We don't know what color its wings are going to be and when it's going to come out of the cocoon, but it's definitely going to be different than it was. For better or for worse, it is what it is, and so we can choose to see it better regardless. We can make that choice. Even if we don't like it, we're not going to change it. We're not going to stick it back in the cocoon until it gets the color we want. So you can learn to appreciate its beauty, even if you don't personally care for that. You can learn to appreciate it just the same, just that it exists. All right, that's my philosophy on that. Andy says, I may be old, but I can still mostly keep up. Absolutely. Keeping up has nothing to do with age. It has to do with attitude. Bikeman said he has an external USB CD DVD reader writer, and he barely uses it. Occasionally, but not as much as he used to. Yeah, a lot of this stuff does not have an on-off switch. It just slowly fades. At some point, everybody pretty much stopped using Windows XP. What day did that happen? I don't know. Not necessarily on the day support ended, but it's a number that only got smaller. And there's probably still a few out there still using it, and they will eventually become zero as well. Just give it time. But the bulk of it ended a long time ago, but not on the same day. But if you measured it, probably within the same period of time, certain window of time. And such is the case with horse and buggies. There's still people that offer horse and buggy rides in different areas, and certainly Amish areas, or Mackinac Island where no cars are allowed, or Central Park in New York. There's still a novelty thing, but for the most part, they're gone. And people don't seem to understand that with the automobile, the streets of New York were so filled with horse crap, you could not get away from the stench. You could not. It was so nasty, and it was hazardous because there's disease transferred that way, and there were so many horses and carriages, like in New York City, for example. If you go back historically and look this information up and the types of problems they had with the waste, the smell, and the sanitation, the advent of the vehicle didn't change that overnight, but less and less those horses and carriages were seen less and less. The smell started to clear up, and people could, enjoy outdoors better. If you lived in an urban area like that where there was traffic of horses and carriages, and it carried with it a unique emissions problem that was not good for the planet. And cars made that better, but maybe a little more dangerous because it's a lot easier, I think, to get killed in a car through irresponsible driving than a horse and carriage, generally speaking.
So eventually, over time, you just saw less and less and less. And now it's pretty rare you ever see a horse and carriage, but there's still some out there. There likely always will be, for whatever reason. And everything in life will change like that. Look at the cars and the way they were designed and their reliability and gas mileage and horsepower of the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. And look at cars today. Look how much more power they have. Look how much more fuel efficient they are. Bluetooth and lane detection, all sensors, and I mean, it just goes on and on and on with this technology. It's insane the amount of progress we make as a race, that as we're in it and living it, we may not realize just how much has changed in such a short period of time. So, I saw the advent of the cassette tape, and I saw it die. And I saw the advent, I saw the 8-track die. I saw the introduction to microwave ovens, and they're full of wonder, to now everybody just uses one, doesn't even think about it. I've seen the introduction to the CD and the DVD and the Blu-ray, and the fighting between which was going to be the standard VHS versus Beta, DVD-R, DVD+R, HD DVD versus Blu-ray. All these fights and all this drama, and nobody uses, pretty much the general public, most of the public, has no interest in any of it anymore. All those sales have plummeted, and most of that equipment isn't made anymore. So it becomes like a niche collector thing. And then eventually the niche collectors die, and then it's done. It's just a matter of time before it completely goes to zero outside of a museum, or it's such a fractional number of people that would still enthusiastically have a novelty item that it's almost immeasurable to be so insignificant. And I've seen that just in the little time I've been here comparatively to the human race, just the advent of the automobile and what I've seen in my life there in all those regards. And of course, with computers, I started with computers in 1981, and the arcade. What happened to the arcades? Yeah, they still kind of exist, but mostly not many new stand-up arcade games coming out. Couldn't even tell you the last one that came out. As far as I can tell, even pinball machines, there's a company called Stern that started making pinball machines. It's such a niche market, they're never going to be $1 trillion company. If they can make a profit and sell enough of them. But if you ask anybody who grew up with old school pinball machines, the Stern ones aren't very good, not by comparison. So more things stay. The one constant thing you can rely on is change. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes when you're in the midst of it, you don't realize just how much has changed, how quickly it's changed. And I think that's what's happening with PCs. I think we're in the midst of seeing it on its way out. I'd like to be wrong. And businesses always need business computers, but they don't want glass panels and RGB and liquid coolers and overclocking. They've never wanted it. With few exceptions here and there, overall, just order the Dells, plain boxes, get them installed, make sure they're all the same, and support is also easier when you do that. Cost is lowered, and of the actual purchase, and support costs also lower. You lease them for a few years, get rid of them before they go bad, replace them on a regular basis, keep your costs down. That business is as strong today as it's ever been. I don't think it's going anywhere. Aaron Werner joining us, saying hello, and just in time as we say goodbye. So that'll wrap it up for today. Our thanks, of course, to our friends at Nimo for so generously sharing this unit with us so we can review it. And I'm very, very happy with it. If you find any shortcomings, aside from the little bit of bloatware and the choice of install of Windows, I'd be curious what your thoughts are. If you have any concerns or you see any value that I failed to mention, that also happens. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments below. This is on sale, discount codes, links are all in our video description below the video. If you want to reach out to us at any time, you can send us an email. The email address right here on the screen, and we'd love to hear from you. We also have our forums at CareyHolzman.boards.net that are open every day. You don't have to be a member. You just jump in there. You can chat with each other as you're doing now in the chat room. You can share your builds, share what's on your mind. It doesn't have to be anything on topic. You can make up your own topic. Have at it. It's there for you. Myself and Mara will pop in there. But overall, that is a place for you guys. You can stay in touch with each other, share your interests, which can include computers, but doesn't have to be exclusively about that. You want to talk about ham radios? Go create a thread talking about it. I may not have much to say. I'm not much interested, but that doesn't mean you guys can't have that discussion over there. CareyHolzman.boards.net is completely free, and that's what it's for, so our community can stay in touch with each other. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you all for hanging out. Thank you especially to those generosity of Mark Gaines, our friend Buster, outstanding. I also want to mention every member here, including a welcome to our new members. We hope you're going to stick around a long time. Thank you to David Graham. Thank you to the contribution we had yesterday from somebody named Martha, which I'm not quite sure who that is in the chat room, but a shout out to Martha as well. And to make sure I get everybody. Oh, Charlie Purdy, of course. See, I feel like an idiot when I leave somebody out like that. This is why I got to double check. Thank you, Charlie. And if there were any super chats I might have missed, let me just take one more look there. It's Alejandro as a new member today. So welcome in, Alejandro. We look forward to seeing you in our chat room in future live videos. Again, I'm back tomorrow, 1 o'clock, with the Radeon mini PC, which the higher end mini PC, but not the top, but definitely, I would say it's above the middle, and it's priced in such a way that I'm like, okay, that seems like a really good amount of tech for the price. But you and I, we can look at that tomorrow as I unbox it for the very first time, fire it up, and see how it's equipped and what the price is. And of course, we'll provide links if you're interested. That's going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you all again tomorrow, 1 o'clock as always. Until then, bye for now.